What is going on, people? Welcome back. It's Tuesday. It's a new week. Well, it was a new week yesterday, but we're not here yesterday. So there's this Screw Mondays kind of thing going on. So it's now the beginning of the week is now. So welcome. Hi. Welcome back. Welcome to Screw Mondays. It's a new Fuse week. I like it. Houdini, and thank you so much for the support. We will look forward to that order coming through. We'll get it packed up and out for you tomorrow. You know our deal. We are quick turnaround here at the store. Faux show. Captain Flashart says, is it just you or the Stynylrez primer is really thin and watery out of the airbrush? It's just you, I think, unless you're thinning them. Don't thin them. It should not be. Shake it well, and you should be fine. Stynylrez is not. Now, it depends on how you're talking about it being thin and watery, or if it's on the surface of your model, you got to make sure the surface is clean and that you're not overdoing it when you come right out of the airbrush. Primers are meant to be very thin and layered on, coat by coat. So if you're overdoing it thick, then it'll look like it's runny, but it really isn't. Just don't thin it. But welcome back, everybody. What is going on? Kev Rob, Grant Kendra, what's going on out there? I see you guys. KTP, welcome back. Houdini, of course. Mathis, what is going on, my friend? JDA, welcome back. Nutty, I see you out there. Ultra Mega, Telemachus, Drago. You needed to cheer up. Oh, hell, Drago. I hope things are going all right. LT, what is going on? Good to see you. Ray Silver, thank you so much for the donation early on. Evan Flo, I see you out there. What's going on? Grins, welcome back. Welcome, welcome. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Love Minis, what is going on? Good to see you. Maybe going too thick then? Could be. Your hometown is burning? What are you talking about? Is there a fire? What are we talking about?
Legs and pollute my britches with delight.
I have not seen any news about burning hometowns. I am sorry to hear that. Hope everybody is safe. Kev Rob, Twitch Prime 11 months. Thank you, my friend. Support is real. Glad to have you back. 11 freaking months. Almost a year, dude. A year. I'm going to have to write you a virtual love letter next month as well. Grins at work for 30 more minutes. Can't wait to get home. SoCal is on fire. It's like winter, man. How can you be on fire? It's winter. All of the SoCal fires are started by ignorant people. So, I mean, geez. What is going on? 3 huge fires in Southern California. Hometown is affected by Thomas fire at 55,000 acres. That is not good. Stay safe. If by hometown that means where you're at in Temecula, please, yeah, the Santa Anas are horrible. I do remember that time of year. In Orange, the Santa Anas would just be... All I was really complaining about the Santa Anas is that they made everything tremendously dirty. But I know that they're also very vicious with regards to dry winds, just changing the world. If something catches on fire, it's horrible.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
LT with the resub. 15 freaking months, LT. Are you kidding me? Thank you. Do I know that giraffes have 15-month gestation period? Here's a giraffe stream. Is that a thing? Like, do they literally have to carry their newborns around or their unborn newborns, their not born giraffe children for 15 freaking months? Jesus. Jesus. Paternity and DNA test. Wait, what? Wait, what? Do I have to go to court for this? I feel like I don't have time for court appointments. Damn it, Drago. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully they're all safe. Yeah, I bet. Worrying about them is not good. Hopefully they're being able to keep in touch with you, though, and let you know things are okay. Fetus. Giraffe fetus. It's a giraffe fetus. Giraffe, that's one word. Giraffe fetus. Learn something every day on Slow Fuse Gaming. Deathheart, what's going on? You get to hang out with us today? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Other than Santa Ana winds and fires in Southern California, I hope everybody's doing well. Ugh. Always something. What the hell? We put a new door on the house. If you keep up with us on the social networks, you'll see that we put a new door on the house. That was fun. I say we. I put a new door on the house. Jen painted said door. So it was a team effort. But she left the house when it was time to hang the door. So she split when the physical work needed to be done. She left me alone. Ugh. Anytime there's heavy stuff to be lifted, Jen's nowhere to be found. That's my job. My job. Where's the gold leaf on the new door? She hasn't gotten around to it yet. I told her no gold leaf on the door. What is this? Freaking Graceland? The Graceland of painting. We're going to get like trips to Mecca, people showing up at the front door wanting painting lessons if we put gold leaf on the door. Screw that. I don't even like brass as a color on houses, man. Our building out in the back, the tough shed that we built out back, has got brass hardware on the door, and I'm ready to throw it away. But we're going to take the brushed nickel hardware off the front door that we took off and put it on the building now. So Jen's the smart one? Yes, we've never argued that. I am not a smart man. I seem to always find myself in the worst situations because, damn it, that's where I'm supposed to be, right? What's going on, Telemachus? You got a problem with your compressor? Telebadger, what's going on? All right, we're going to paint. You know how to do. It is Star Wars Booty Day. I mean, Star Wars Storm... I mean, pinup... I mean, half... I mean, we're just going to paint this thing. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to drink my tea, which is not really good today. I hate it when my tea is not good. That's kind of a bummer. Not gonna lie. Somehow I didn't clean my brush and it's still keeping a point. We'll see how long that happens. It'll be okay, though. Right. I have not cleaned my brushes in like over a week, I don't think. Like you can see. This is what I talk about when I talk about why the brush soap is so important. This is from when we were painting on Friday the flesh, and you can see how all up at the base there. See, I just knocked off a big chunk of paint there. Oh boy, that's great, Fuse. That's great. Don't do as I do. Do as I... Just don't even pay attention to me is probably your best bet. I'm just saying. Probably just don't even pay attention to me. I caught a couple areas I need to make sure we get some fur brown, which was our skin color. Our base skin color was fur brown. Found a couple little marks on the model. Or spots on the model, not marks. Spots on the model where we needed to get a little bit more fur brown. You can see one of them right there. Right up in there along her booty line. Her booty line, her thigh line, where it comes across the armor there. There's a little bit of bare resin right there. Back clean up here for a second. We didn't do any highlighting on her flesh anywhere other than the face on Friday. I got the leeway to come in and just kind of fix this stuff up right now. And her thigh there is missing some paint. Blame you guys. You're supposed to tell me these things. You're supposed to be like, Fuse, damn it, you old man, you missed a spot. You guys don't take care of me like that. You guys don't care. You don't care. You just laugh at my mistakes. Just laugh while I cry. Laugh at my pain. It's gonna be that kind of Tuesday, guys. I feel it. Like I'm kind of in a like blithering idiot mode where none of my thoughts are very coherent today. Been one of those old man moments, except it's been a lot of hours of old man moments today. I wander around the house. What did I come in this room for? What is this room? Is this my house? Been one of those days. Just gonna tell you. Just a drop of honesty in the honesty cup for today. I'm going crazy. Ebb and Flow, your resub did not show. Let me see if it got caught here. It may not have come through yet. Hang on. Notifications, subs. I got LT, KevRob. That's it for today. KevRob and LT. That means it has not shown up through on my end yet, but that doesn't mean that it won't. Thank you, though, for your resub. Much love and appreciation, my friend. And I don't know what's going on with Twitch. You know, they have been screwing around with their app and stuff for the last month, and it has thrown all sorts of stuff into disarray with regards to how the API links into it. So all the third-party integrations, all the third-party immigration has been stopped, and they're now building a Twitch wall. No, the third-party integration is all shot to shit. Streamlabs, everybody's having problems. Not only affects us, but pretty much every streamer that I've seen has had some sort of oof moment occurring from time to time on their stream with notifications not coming through, so on and so forth. So I apologize for not only our channel, but any of the channels that you wind up having problems with. Do not blame the streamers. Hashtag blame the Twitch monkeys. I feel like they have monkeys banging on keyboards at Twitch sometimes for the amount of problems we get from what should be simple changes. But I think they're upgrading like entire back-end systems right now. Like probably the way the software is written. It's the kind of issues that we're having are the kind of issues that come around with like complete overhauls in software. Rewriting the same functions and new code with new eyes and stuff causes all sorts of bugs in the old stuff. That's what I feel like is going on. I could be wrong. But I've been around this crap long enough to notice what's going, kind of problems are created when they do these changeovers. I'm just trying to make sure I'm tidying up my lines right around the armor where it looked like we didn't have quite the flesh meeting up with the armor line. I don't want to wind up in like highlight stage of skin and be like, okay, well there's a gap between the armor and the flesh right there, and you already are like done with the skin, because then it's tough. You got to come back in with like a shade and a highlight and all that and blend 6 different colors in across multiple layers and all that crap. So better to just do it now. Looks pretty good. Now I think I'm comfortable going on to highlights. I'm probably way off screen, aren't I? How I touch the booty, my Lord Megatron. Hey, you know, it's what we do. It's what we do. Jen's not here to stop me. Styrorez is clogging up when you're priming models, trying to figure out if it's the PSI is wrong, getting moisture, or maybe you're putting too much in the cup and it's drying out. Telemachus, whenever you're using the Styrorez, you know, you never want to put too much in the cup. I only fill the airbrush to the level of like what is the bottom of the cup neck, like to right about the bottom of my finger there. So you've got paint down in the body of the airbrush and just a hair of it up in the cup. Spray that until it's gone. Run a little bit of water through the brush, you know, just to blast out any of the old primer, and then put new primer in. You don't have to put cleaner. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to clean it itself. You just want to run the primer through, then run a cup of water through, then put new primer in and prime more, then run water and all of that. Because, yeah, the primer will skin over at the top, right? More child, 13 freaking months in a row. Are you kidding me? Thank you, my friend. Support is real. Much appreciated. The primer will skin over, and of course, as you draw the paint down, the paint at the top of the cup is the last to go through the nozzle. So if you're not careful and you leave too much primer in here and you're priming a model, priming a model, priming a model, priming another model, priming another model, priming another model, on and on and on, while there's primer in the cup, that top of the primer skins up, and by the time it sucks it down through, clogs the nozzle. So you want to be running as little bit of paint as you can do to do a section or a model, and then clean it, you know, not clean it, but run water through just to thin everything else out and get rid of that skin, and then go ahead and spray again. But you shouldn't be having a problem. Also, you know, don't use brushes like Sotar 2020s for priming. Don't use stuff that has like a 1.5 needle in it. You know, nothing that's done for real fine detail work, because you're trying to force a thicker polymer paint through a smaller aperture. Right? The thing that makes primers work, we talk about this a lot on here, is that they run a larger acrylic polymer through, so it's like a thicker paint inherently. Maybe not when you know go and you put it out on the palette and were to look at it. They're all going to look about the same because your eye can't tell the difference between the polymer size at the base level, right? So, but it is larger, and because of that, you got to be careful because you can't shove the same stuff. It's like trying to throw varnish through a small aperture on an airbrush. So just be careful with that too. Ravenous, what is going on? Thank you so much for the cookies, my friend. The entertainment value of the stream. What? There's no entertainment here. Real Ashman, welcome back. What's going on? Good to see you. Get yourself a high roller trigger for my 105? Nah. Nah. I mean, they're good if you use them a lot, but for me, for priming, I don't like the large throw trigger on them. It's great. I mean, as a larger lever, it makes sense, right? The geometry behind it makes sense. If you're going to be using it for like fine detail work, then it's a lot better. For me, just priming, it doesn't do me any good. Awada Neo CN. I think it's a 0.3. You should be okay with it, I would assume. Logan Paul. Stop poking her in her spot. I'm not poking her. I'm just painting. We have her approval to touch her, right? She decided to wear this, and she let us. We wrote people. We asked the right questions, right? She hasn't told us to stop it. It's all done in tongue-in-cheek, by the way, by my friends. You know that. Sky Relics, you saw the door? If you follow us on Facebook, my weekend was spent hanging the door and doing honeydews around the house. So you're not supposed to thin the Vallejo primers. I try not to thin any primers. The Vallejo surface primer is one that is kind of able to be brushed on as easy as airbrushed. I will add like a spot of water to the Vallejos. With normal primers, you don't want to thin primer. It stops being useful for what it was made for, which is forming a protective shell on whatever it is you're putting it on.
Why don't you donate
The reason,
to the cause and
freaking Kenny, 25 bucks. Holy hell.
$25
I feel like he just bought him his brother some brushes. I feel like that's what that might
painting. Much love, brother. You are my nomination for Warhammer Hero.
No way, dude. I don't even touch that Warhammer stuff. What are you talking about? Kenny, you're a hero. What's going on, man? Good to see you. Thanks, Skyrelics. Yeah, it turned out Jen painted it. She picked the color. Well, we picked the color and she painted it, but she did all that stuff. But with primers, the whole reason that primer does what we associate it with in our head, not just be a ultra flat paint, because in some cases primer just seems like it's an ultra flat paint. The flatness of it gives it a texture, lets the other paints that you apply to it adhere a little bit better. But what really makes primer is that it forms an inclusive shell, right, around the part that you're painting. So like if you're painting a car, or like if you use primer in the world where paints really matter, not saying that they don't matter in miniature, but they're fun to look at, but we don't drive these things and bang stuff into them. We put them on shelves. Every now and then we play with them, stuff like that. But if you're going to paint a car, a motorcycle, something like that, when you prime it, you're looking to get complete coverage. That's why you take parts off of a car, prime them separately. You don't just paint the whole car, doors and fenders and everything at once, unless it's a really cheap paint job. Because if you do that, the primer doesn't get around all of the edges. And it's a thicker polymer in the paint. When we're talking about acrylics, we're talking about acrylic polymer is what makes acrylic paint. It's plastic, basically. Those polymers have a chemical bond, and that bond draws the molecules together, and the larger the polymer, the stronger the bond. The stronger the bond, the harder it is to break, and the more it holds the pigment in the suspension and things like that. So if you're looking at that and you start thinning it and you drag those polymers apart from one another, that's what thinning does, is it takes the molecular portion of the paint and it breaks that bond, thins that bond out to where now the pigment that was held between those polymers spreads further across. It's easier to see through, becomes transparent, translucent, all the effects that you get from thinning down paint. Well, at some point it breaks, okay, or it becomes so thin that it's no longer strong, and that paint can then be rubbed off. It doesn't give you a good coverage around an edge. So thinning for primers, usually not a good thing. That's why we really recommend Stynylrez, especially if you're going through an airbrush. The Badger Stynylrez is by far the most superior primer in our hobby. So you can stick with that. The Vallejo Surface Primer is also very good, but like I said, you probably want a drop of water to go through an airbrush on that. It's a little thicker, because you can paintbrush the Vallejo on a little bit easier than you can the Stynylrez. The Stynylrez you can paintbrush on for like fixing spots. Like if I had a spot where I rubbed paint off, like on her heel, I could come back and put that primer on and it would be all right. But if I was going to try to prime this whole model with a brush, I would not use the Stynylrez, right? The Vallejo is much better off if you don't have access to an airbrush and you want to brush primer all of your stuff. It lays flat, it doesn't give you a lot of texture to it, so it's really good for that, but you do need a spot of water. Just don't put too much. And don't just inherently thin primer. Do other things to make sure that your brush doesn't clog, like what we were talking about. Put less primer in the airbrush, run it fewer times. You know, you might not be able to prime this whole model at once. You prime the top half and then run a little spot of water through your airbrush to clean it out, then load it up with primer and do the bottom half, stuff like that. You don't want to be running primer through it all the time, because it will actually, cure a little bit quicker in the cup. And then we were saying that skinning will clog the airbrush and all that stuff. So, does something special happen at $50? Hell yeah, we do giveaways at $50. Max Payne, what is going on? Suspension. Ebb and flow, yeah. Acrylic paints are not solutions, they're suspensions. We talk about solution a lot, just because it's an easy word to use when you're talking about liquids. We tend to talk, but in a scientific sense, acrylic paint like we use is a suspension. The pigment is suspended in the acrylic polymer. It's not a solution. A solution is where the pigment would dissolve into the polymer and just become an inherent quality of the polymer, right? And saturate it. That's not how pigment works. That's why paints separate. That's why you get old paint, has all the pigment at the bottom dried up and the polymer sitting on top of it, the medium, we'll say, right? So as a suspension, the pigment is literally just suspended in mid-liquid. And that's what causes paint to work that way. So that's also why as you thin the paint, the polymer spread, the pigment that's in the suspension will fall, and that's why you don't get as much pigment as you thin paint. So there you go. That's one of them things. That's one of them things. Thank you so much. Holy hell. I feel like we just hit $50. What is that? What is that? Already a freaking giveaway? Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get good, Ebb and Flow, about calling it not a solution.
$20 donation received.
Kenny,
next_level
you're a hero, my friend.
painting.
Everybody, let's get some hype in channel for Kenny from Next Level Painting. You guys all know Kenny. You can't not know Kenny. But some hype, because he just generated a free gift certificate for somebody out there, pretty much. He and Ray Silver, two-manning the first giveaway in December here. I think we did giveaway on Friday. That was the first in December. The second giveaway in December. Thank you, guys. So exclamation point booty, you know it's been triggered. We'll do that at the end of the show. Gren says, you literally had to give this exact talking to a cousin of yours when he asked if I could do automotive painting. There's more than just throw down some paint. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can like literally prime a car without taking any of the body panels off and all of that, and then you can spray paint over it. And if you go to like Earl Shive or places like that, that's what they do. But they literally spray the primer over the body gaskets between fenders. Some cars don't do that anymore. But the old cars used to have like body gaskets, like rubber gaskets between the fender and the main body. They would spray the rubber gasket with primer and then spray it with, you know, lacquer paint or enamel paint. And then all of a sudden, when the rubber gasket moves and buckles and heats and shrinks as temperatures change, the paint then breaks, and now the paint starts peeling off your entire car. So when you're doing model painting, you know, I've heard people tell other people that when you're priming a miniature, you don't even need to worry about getting full coverage. That is wrong, especially if you're working with metal miniatures. You need to have good coverage across an entire model for your primer, because anywhere where there isn't primer is a failure spot on the model where the paint will strip off. Now, obviously, we're not manhandling our models generally, so you're not in as big a situation as you are if you paint your car wrong, right? You know, unless they're, you know, you just don't primer it at all. I know some people that have never primered their models at all and say, oh, but you know, the varnish holds it in. And it's true, as long as the varnish stays good at the end, it'll lock the paint on, but the whole process of painting is a pain in the ass without primer. So. All right, so let's do some painting. Next color somebody asked is Barbarian Flesh, or I'm sorry, no, Tanned Flesh. Oops. Tanned Flesh from the Army Painter. Our flesh workup is pretty much all Army Painter on this, except for we might use a spot of basic skin tone from Model Color at the end. That's a very, very pale skin tone, as you can see, at the very end. We'll see. I don't know how pale I want to go. So right now, we are working from Fur Brown from the Army Painter as our base coat. It's a great, darker kind of shadow for Caucasian skin. It's also a good highlight for African skin or darker skin tones, animal fur, obviously called fur, fur pelts and stuff like that.
Donate $5
then we're gonna go Tan, then Barbarian. Holy hell, Shogoth, 5 buccarinos. Thank you, my friend. Barbarian Flesh up after Tan Flesh. After that, we'll shoot in with some Elven Flesh, and then if we need to, we'll go to basic skin tone from Model Color. I'm not sure how far along this we're gonna get. I'm just judging by eye as I go. So right now we'll go to Tan Flesh. Tan Flesh is usually a good base color, but we're using it as our first highlight on this one. Hobo Sync airbrush status. Is that how we label how our skills are improving? All right, we did a little bit of work with the Tan Flesh on the face. If you'll remember on Friday, you can see how we have already knocked our shadows back a little bit. You get that deep shadow under the chin, but you get a highlight line along the jawline, upper lip, nose, cheeks, eyelid, forehead, all of that drawing back towards the temple and underneath. So we've already kind of done that area, ear, throat, all of that is looking pretty good. You'll notice how you don't have that down here. We're taking very, very small steps with regards to how we go from skin color to skin color rather than jumping up too bright off of our base skin tone. We want to go into this one that you can see isn't a big change, right? Because that'll allow us to play around with it quite a bit on the model. So I'm just going to randomly start in here, like on the shoulder here. Start adding the Tan Flesh right in there. Working from where I want it to be less bright to where I want it to be more bright. So in this case, going from the armpit area or the back muscles here, the shoulder muscles, up onto the top of the shoulder. Smoothing it out as I go. I don't want a lot of texture on this. You got to be careful when you're doing skin. It's one of those few things that it's very particular, I feel, when you want to have brush texture on it. right? Like when we did our troll skin, we wanted a lot more texture on that because it was kind of like leathery frog skin, I feel. And that's okay. But on human skin, especially pinup girl skin, you probably don't want a lot of texture. So you're gonna have to be a lot more careful as you work through every single color on the model to not get that brush stroke showing up, right? So even though I'll use kind of wispy strokes from time to time, I'm making sure that I blend them all, in this case, far left to right as I'm doing them, right? So that I don't see my brush stroke, and so that at the end of the color down here, I'm also not getting streaks of paintbrush stroke on there. So you'll see me come back and just kind of feather that in the other direction, right? So now I'm feathering bottom to top where I was painting top to bottom. Reason for that is if I have any kind of textured brush tip ends coming out of that skin tone down here, now I just feather them out and they go away. So like that. Touch the side of her rib cage here the same way. Coming down out of the underarm area. Notice how I won't paint all the way down to this armor line here, right? I just leave myself about a brush width there so that I can then turn the brush and come from the armor piece back up to that bright area along the ribs. And by reversing my stroke, not only do I blend them and get rid of the texture that I'm creating, but I also then pile up that color right here in the center, and I leave a little bit of shadow and depth down along the armor line there. And notice how right here it starts to have that glow where I want it. As opposed to if I just push this brush stroke here, say from the underarm, and pull it all the way down to the armor line, I'm going to build up too much paint down low there and I'll lose that shadow, and I have to find a way to build it back up later, which I don't want to do. Kind of reverse my stroke. Ending my stroke each time right around this area. So when I come from the top, making sure that I'm ending my stroke right in there. And same from the bottom. Now I get a very nice color buildup. Still got some good shadow as the armor would kind of pinch across her rib line there. And then shadow as it dips back up into the underarm area too. Smoothing as I go if I see any irregularities in color. Little hint of side boob right here, so I want to be able to kind of highlight that a bit. Obviously not much because it's down underneath the arm, so most of this is going to be in shadow, but you got to remember we've got 3 or 4 other brighter colors to go here, so we can afford to play with it just a little bit and put some of this tan flesh up into the shadowy areas too. If we stop with the tan flesh and we don't layer it into our shadows right now, then with our next color that we pile on, it will become so bright that it won't give us enough space to do any other highlighting. So that's why I'm going to go in with the tan flesh just right up here on the side of the breast that we can catch, and a little bit up into the underarm. But notice how I'm taking most of the paint off of the brush entirely, so that I'm not worried about building up too much in my shadows. I'm never going to offload a ton of paint up in there. Right, but I still get the distinguishing features of where the breast rolls back into the rib cage and the tendons and muscles up underneath the underarm. So I get just a little bit of highlight on the side of the breast, then shadow down under the underarm. Part of that shadow is falling on from the model. If I do like that, you can see how the model's casting some of that. But I get the side of the boob, a little bit of shadow, brightness as we come back up under the underarm, a little bit of shadow and darkness on this side, and then come back up into brightness as we come out of the underarm again. Right. And then you'll notice how the model's now casting that hard line shadow across there. Something you always got to take into account. We talk about it a lot with regards to painting something that already has volume to it, like a three-dimensional model like this. It's already going to cast its own shadows. You've got to fight those shadows, though. You have to kind of play with them and know that I'm going to have to kind of force them to do things that they may not want to do, so that at the end of the day, my model looks as good as it can, and not just be relying on the model casting its own light and darkness. Because it always looks a little funky if, like I say, I paint all this one color and I rely on the model's shadow to give me that depth. Then I walk into a room or someplace where, you know, the light is dimmer and now the shadow's too dark, or I walk into a place where the light's super bright and now the shadow doesn't even exist. So notice how I've painted it to where the shadow exists even when I'm torturing it and shooting so much light up in there that the model doesn't cast any shadow at all. I still have and maintain that shadow right along the same line that the model kind of does in the right light. Right? Again, coming down here out of the armor. My brush stroke up a little bit. Start going left or right. Come down here around her hips. Again, reverse the stroke, come right to left, back left to right, blend any of that we got going on in the middle there. And also help alleviate that texture that we tend to create from our brush stroke. It just feels wrong to bail on a perfectly good cup of paint. What are you talking about? Bail on it? When it's in your airbrush and you dump it? Is that what you're saying? Don't fill it up as much. That's why I say don't ever put that much paint. When you watch me airbrush, I literally never put paint in the cup. I only put enough paint to fill up that part of the body of the airbrush. Right? So like if I'm going to dump paint in my Grex, of course I have to drop it in the cup, but it never comes higher than like right there. I never put paint to where it's up here in the cup. It's always like down here. There's enough paint in just the barrel of the brush and the neck right here to do quite a bit of painting with when you're painting thin and controlling it the way we do, right? So you don't have to put a lot of paint, and that way you really never have enough time for that paint to cure in the airbrush either, even with primer. And primer, you're shooting a lot more paint, so you will have to recycle more, but trust me, it's worth it for it to not clog your brush, and that way you keep, you know, you keep painting longer is the key. Plus, there's that mental fatigue that comes with your brush clogging. Even if it doesn't technically take you very long to clear the clog in your brush, I feel like there's a WTF moment that happens every time your brush clogs, and I feel like that's fatiguing on your want to continue painting. Does that make sense? That might be a little too philosophical, but I feel like that's what it is, you know, is that there's a lot of that goes on, that kind of, you know, what is causing artist block. You know, and if every time you pick up your airbrush to prime, you know you're going to spend more time cleaning than actually painting, and by, you know, running less paint through the airbrush at each given time, you can cure that, then I feel like the extra work that it might actually create is worth it to not have to deal with the extra brain fatigue that comes along with, oh God, here we go, time to clean the freaking airbrush again. Not really too worried about details like the underside of a rib cage. I'm kind of leaving a little bit of a line here where I'm not pushing too much of the tan flesh in, but the model's causing a little bit of that shadow too, just with the sculpt. So right there at the bottom of the rib cage with our next color, we won't put anything there. We'll allow that to do it. But on this color, I'm okay with forcing a little bit down there. But you can see how as we feather this color in, what a change it has. Even though as I'm painting, it doesn't look like I'm putting too much paint down. You look at it here versus, say, the inner thigh here, and you can see the color differentiation pretty quick. What do I think of Green Stuff World's Chameleon acrylic paint, Shogoth? You know me, I'm not a fan of those kind of effects paints because you can't control the effect they give. I feel like for certain things like globes, like orbs in a wizard's hand or something, that they could be really cool because of the color change that they'll give off. I feel like a lot of people are going to do them for like Space Marine armor and stuff and vehicles, and it'll look cool, but it'll get real boring real quick. I think those effects paints like ghost tints and all that get boring a lot quicker than other things because they're so particular in the way that they work, and anything that's that, it's like painting your car the color of the month, right? It's like, bam, you know, you go to the auto dealership and the color right now that everybody's hot on is, you know, electric blue, and next year you wish you hadn't bought an electric blue car. I feel like that's the way most of those paints are, but I feel like they really have their place for small effects on models. Like I said, wizard, you know, orbs, maybe a particular, you know, part of armor on something or the face of a shield or something. I think they could be used to some great effect. Nothing's over until we decide it's over. You're just ranting. You're just making shit up. How many whips tonight? Annis Ogre, 1 at the end of the show. Was thinking of starter picks, then after picks towards the end. Just the 1 whip tonight. We'll have to pick the best ones. Well, you could post some now and then post some in an hour from now, and other people will have posted pictures in between yours, Ogre. It would have the same kind of thing. Right? Hannah, what's going on? Welcome. And welcome everybody that snuck in. If you're just lurking in the background, welcome to Tuesday. Hope your weekend was great. Good to see you. Yeah, I just never liked those weird effects paints for that reason. I feel like sometimes they're kind of crippling because they, you know, they are meant to make it easy to get effects that people supposedly want. You know, not that the color change, but like the iridescence of those chameleon paints, I think, is going to be a big thing that people want. And yet the way that they do it with, you know, a concoction in the paint that you can't control, just like metallics, right? When you go look at metallics in the real world, they are very, very difficult for you to control the way they look. You know, we rant about that all the time. They have their place, they're very cool, but you just can't use them as a crutch, because if what you're really looking for is a way to, you know, have a model's metals look, you know, a specific way all the time, then you're going to have to take the time to actually paint that in there. And if you want iridescence, you know, we've done it quite a few times before, and showing you how you can glaze and use transparent painting techniques to kind of layer up and get iridescence on your models and be in control of what the user sees. But like I said, if you're painting like a Zine Charmy, I feel like those things would be awesome. They have their spot where they're going to be awesome. A little bit on the neck there, and right in here where it gets a little dark towards the temple, right at the base of the cheek that I want to lighten up a little bit on her. Shouldn't be quite that dark headed back into the ear. Just layering this stuff up a little bit. So.
Somebody likes us.
Hey, Juicy Willie, what is going on? Thank you for that follow. Welcome, welcome. And get a little bit of subtle brightness on the back of her neck. Even though this is all in shadow, remember that this is not our highest highlight that we're working with right here. So we gotta always be remembering that. Uh-oh. Butt paint. It's time, people. Close your eyes, send your little ones to school or to bed, wherever you are in the world. It's time to paint some hiney. First thing you want to do is kind of figure out where your bright spot wants to be, and it kind of wants to be right here on the globe of her butt, kind of centered, top to bottom. Because of the positioning that she's in, you're always going to want to look, right? And the highlight is going to be kind of maybe a little bit trending towards the top and then fall off into shadow down here. So that's going to pick my brush stroke direction, right? Again, pulling out of darkness to light. So I'll just kind of start by bottom to top. No pun intended there.
Dirty, dirty little thing.
Dirty, dirty little thing. And then top to bottom to kind of meet in the middle. Blend those textures, build up paint, kind of right in the center of Le Boutte. And just kind of working them back and forth. Right through that center area. Because we're working so thin, I got to be careful that I don't overwork it. Otherwise, I start tearing the paint. So I'm going to stop working on that side now. Move over to the other one. Her hip is thrown out to her left. So this one, the bright spot, is going to kind of move. It's going to be like up here. You can see the shine from my lamp. So we're just going to follow that. So it's going to shift a little bit on this side. I'm going to start by pulling across. We're too thick. Fill my brush up with water and make sure I don't let that stick on there. Too thick.
Get down with the clown.
Wow! I feel good.
You got me. You bastages, you got me. Alright, get most of my paint off the brush. Come back and blend this area as it comes underneath the cusp of the buns here towards shadow over thigh. These areas you'll want to work a few times. Obviously, it's like doing armor panels with a brush, right? You've got a large area that is a flat surface, right? And so the more texture you put on it, the worse it's going to look. So layering very, very thin, making sure that we, just get our kind of, you can see how our bright spot's starting to build right up in here, right? And then lightly fade out of that bright spot up in here as well. And we'll just have to keep coming back to that and working it again and again after it starts to cure. You don't want to keep it too wet for too long, because you hear me say the paint will tear, and it really will. It'll tear and show the layer underneath, and then that's a lot harder to fix. We're going to avoid working on them now. We're going to work down to this thigh. On this thigh, we just kind of want a bright spot kind of right here. I'm going to come down out of the shadow from the cleft of her butt there. Just kind of brighten up one little spot on the inner thigh. Like so. Not too much. Same thing over here. Very easy, short strokes. Come back the other way and blend them. Reversing my stroke, smooth my paint out, feather my edges. Just a little bit of highlight there, but I want to leave most of this shadow intact. Working down back of the knee. Again, this will be shadowed by the armor quite a bit, so I want to be careful here and not get it too bright, but I do want to catch some of these tendons in the knee. Using a little bit of a stippling technique since there's not a lot of area in there.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches
that?
with delight.
Who dat? Shinkai! 2 months in a row, thank you so much. Get some hype in chat for all these resubs. New subs, resubs, all the love. We already got a giveaway today, thank you guys so much. That'll happen towards the end of the show. That highlight built up in there just for a little bit of the change as I go throwing my brush around. Yeah, that's good to do. Notice how as I get my highlights built up where I want them, these outside tendons, right? And the center of the back of the knee, then once I have a brightness built up and a contrast between that and the shadows, I'll come back with this same lighter color and I'll go ahead and dip it through the shadows, right? I'll go ahead and run it through the shadows just to glaze a little bit of it, but not enough to bring it up to the same value as the outsides and the center of the back of the knee. So I still keep that shadow, but I have blended it together a little bit so it doesn't give us just a stark line. You might have seen me, I did the same exact thing up in the shadows underneath her butt cheeks. Spend time building up the brightness where I want it first, right? So like on this knee, right here, all of this is the same color right now. And I'll just come through and I'm just doing this line on the back of her knee first. Just kind of stippling in color there until I get it smoothed out. Leave a little darkness at the top and the bottom for the shadow that the armor is going to create.
Well, huzzah, huzzah!
Right. So then I
I'll
get a
just
bright
throw
line
back
down
my
the
legs
center.
and pollute my britches with delight.
Fist! Thank you so much. Welcome back, my friend. What has been going on? Also go into the outside of the knee here. Same way, just kind of brighten that up. Not getting any paint in between them, right? So back of the knee, inside of the knee. Same thing, come over here, get the outside of the knee. Right. though, leaving those lines. So now, see those lines in between, all of that is a lot darker. Right? Then I'll get most of the paint off of my brush. And then I'll come back and run a little bit of that color through the shadows. Again, not enough to make them disappear, but enough to just kind of blur them together. Maybe only one pass, sometimes two, just depends. Right? But rather than leave bright paint, dark paint, and an edge where you can see that it starts and stops, just come back and glaze a little bit of your light paint on. When we put on the lighter color, we'll do the same thing with the lighter color. Always paying attention to not want to, shove our shadows back too far. But just to smooth everything together as we go is really the key here. The model doesn't have any texture right here. I say texture, it doesn't have like a sculpted detail where her kneecap would normally create a little bit of a divot between it and the tendon going down for the calf muscle right here. So I'm going to do that on my own just by brightening up the paint right in this area, leaving a gap, and then coming over to the knee. Alright, so I create that little band of darkness right in there to the side of the kneecap. Sculpt is a little rough right there. I didn't notice it before. And I don't want to build up too much brightness on the inside here. There's not enough calf muscle showing or anything like that. So I'm literally just going to stipple in so that we don't get the brightness coming around from the back to just stand out too stark. Kind of blend it in as I go. Back up towards the front. So this one little spot here. And I want to create a detail line here for her kneecap. Just stippling in a little bit of brightness right there out of the armor, and then I'm going to skip a spot so that where her thigh muscle comes down and the hamstring from the back and all that anatomy crap that nobody ever really wanted to know, but that plays a part in a model that's already trying to be somewhat realistic, although hashtag Stormtrooper. Leave a little bit of darkness there. Since the sculpt doesn't have it all created on my own. That little bit of line right there gives us some anatomical correctness in the knee.
Hey, somebody likes us.
Listenix, what's going on? Thank you for that follow. Welcome, welcome. An appendectomy scar? Can we do an appendectomy scar on her? No.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw
Migzor,
back my
what's going on?
legs
Where do we
and
buy that
pollute
miniature?
my
This is from
britches with
Kabuki
delight.
Miniatures. Kabuki, I think it's Kabuki-Studio. Is that what we came up with? Kabuki-Studio.com. Yes. Kabuki-Studio.com. This is called the Star Vixen, and this is what we are painting. They lie to you in the advertising. They make it seem like she's wearing a bodysuit. She is not wearing a bodysuit. We explained it on Friday. She has a G-string. So unless there's some sort of weird, what did somebody say? Like weird 90s workout video going here where she's wearing like a bodysuit and a G-string over the bodysuit, then yeah, we went with painting her flesh style like this. Mainly because that's what the sculpt calls for. Not just for the sexiness of it, but also because when I saw that, I was kind of worried about what I was going to do with this model on a base, right? I've seen some people make bases for it that are like inside of Imperial Star Destroyer looking bases, tech bases, and things like that. I feel like this model wants more than just a round base. So what we decided is that when I saw that there was actually a G-string sculpted on her, that I would do it a la bathing suit pinup, and we're going to do her on a beach scene with a beach towel and waves washing up onto the beach, so it should be pretty cool. It is this Stormtrooper's beach vacation scene is what we're going to create out of it. Should be kind of fun. All right, let's continue working on the bootay. Needs a tattoo. We said we might do like I might come back at the end, and we wanted to do like you know, like I guess when they tan, those people when they go to tanning booths, they do like a sticker
Well, huzzah,
that keeps the
huzzah.
sticker from
I'll
getting
just
tan.
throw
So we might
back
just
my
paint her whole
legs
body and then
pollute
come back
my
with like a
britches
heart
with
sticker on her
delight.
butt, or like a TIE fighter shape on her butt that's just in light pale skin that makes it look like one of those stickers was used. I think that would be kind of fun. Sabbath, thank you so much for the resub. 5 months in a row. Let's get some hype in chat. Thank you, thank you. A towel and a Darth Vader helmet to put on the beach next to her. I was thinking about doing, it'll be like a Star Wars towel of some sort, but we were thinking about coming up with an alcohol that we could create, like a name of an alcohol. So like instead of like a Corona towel, think of like a beer commercial kind of a scene that I want to do. Come up with a, what did we come up with? It was, I forget what we came up with on Friday, but we need to keep coming up with ideas for alcohols, and we'll do a beach towel that's painted with like a, you know, an alcohol name. Genuine, what is going on? We always aim to please, Jan. How the hell are you doing today? A dude mini with his butt hanging out so I can paint it for us. Hannah, I started sculpting a War Machine pinup of Coleman Stryker, right? Just to, I'll get it. There's probably a bunch of you that haven't seen it. I actually found it this weekend. Since the move, I had not seen that many. Hang on, I'll be right back. Yeah, so way back when we started painting the first Kingdom Death models we ever did on the stream, I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that I am not simply doing half-naked females because male chauvinism. So we started a deal where we wanted to go through and, oh geez, somehow he got a cut through his waistline. I'll have to fix that. Oh, and here too. He dried out, it looks like. But I started sculpting a Coleman Stryker miniature for War Machine hordes that I could do as a way to show that you know, we're not just here doing the dirty old man thing. So we were doing a male pinup model and all of that. But we still need to do a lot of work on him. I haven't smoothed anything out. We were like last we were doing it, we were starting to rough out the details, like the armor on the knees and the belt, and you know, I think I was doing like the shoulder and all that. You can see how some of the super sculpting, because I'm in Arizona and I wasn't working this for so long, I'm gonna have to go back in, and like a lot of the thin pieces that I put on there have cracked. So I have to go back in and fill those and then actually bake this guy off. I never did, but the thin layers will crack like that if you don't work them for a long time. So there's a lot of gaps now in him, but I need to do that. And I was working on his face too and just trying to get the model together for that. I've got his sword and hand and all that stuff too someplace. I don't know where all that is. We got, I think that was in response, if somebody would correct me, I think we painted we painted a model, Sorsha, Commander Sorsha from War Machine, right? The Kador commander. We painted her, and it was kind of the same thing as we're seeing on this Stormtrooper model, on that Sorsha model, is that the way it was sculpted, it looked like she wasn't supposed to have any clothing around her, like, chest area, like, you know, not like massive cleavage or anything, but like her suit didn't have any fabric sculpted down under the underarm, so it gave a little side boob and stuff. And so whenever I look at a sculpt, if I don't see fabric lines in it, then I try to paint it to the texture that the sculptor would have wanted it, and it sure looked like skin to me. So I painted it as skin. And the sculptor on that Sorsha model also had her butt cheeks clearly sculpted onto the back of, even though she was wearing a heavy coat, the heavy coat had her butt cheeks sculpted into it as if it were like a thin silk cloth. So we highlighted the cloak. We didn't overdo it. You know, we're not ever trying to be rude here, but, you know, we paint to the model. And so we did it. But when we posted it online, a lot of people came back and go, that's so sexist. And I'm like, are you kidding me, people? Really? The War Machine guys, Doug Hamilton? Doug Hamilton? I think it's Doug Hamilton. One of the main sculptors for Privateer Press came forward and even said that that was one of the favorite parts of that model, was that her butt came through the heavy cloak. And another one of the guys from Privateer Press came on and said that I was one of the first people that ever noticed that she actually wasn't wearing any clothing under her armor on the side there. And so they defended what I had done, not from a sexist attitude, but everybody else was just giving a shit. So I was like, I'll show you guys I don't care. I'm not here to just paint half-naked women. You know, so we started sculpting Coleman Stryker. It kind of went on the back burner because it takes me forever to sculpt stuff, but you see where we got. Aunt Shovel, what's going on? Welcome. Thank you for that follow. I'm not a dirty old man. Don't you see me sculpting this bare-chested dude? Exactly. It was done as a response. I was like, I don't care. I just paint to the model. It doesn't matter. If somebody gave me a Kingdom Death model that's like a half-naked pinup female, which is what they were that we were painting, then I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to pretend like it's wearing clothes if the sculptor and the person that sent it to me to be painted wanted it because it was a pinup. You know, it's what they like. You know, granted, I like this. I think this is done tastefully. I like the Star Wars behind it and all that. And obviously, it's not too far over the top. It's like, you know, Sports Illustrated swimsuit craziness. But yeah, so we sculpted the Coleman Stryker one to try to go that way. Since then, I think there's a company that actually came out with some dude miniatures as a Kickstarter, but I don't think they ever shipped them. Yeah, it was Doug Savitt, exactly. Afflicted, what is going on, man? I had to paint the naked crossbow boy for... Oh, that's right. That was a very awkward moment for me. I was like, why am I painting a small naked boy on stream? I'm going to get kicked off Twitch. Star Destroyed beer. That could be a thing. Tatooine toddy. Holy hell. It has to be like a beer, right? Somebody said like vodka. It could be a vodka. I forget what we had. Oh, it was Balls vodka from Spaceballs, but that had already been a thing. Imperial Stout. Yeah, but see, that's already a thing, right? I mean, we could play with it. Where's his butt cheeks, though? He has butt cheeks. Massively buff dude that wasn't wearing underwear. Just a crotch plate. Oh, that's right. He had like a crazy little tail. He has a crazy little tail and nothing. He has nothing for a crotch. He's sexless now. That's part of becoming a demon prince, I guess. Emperor beer. Palpatine vodka. We'll come up with something. What's wrong with painting half-naked chicks? Nothing. Not sexist, just willing to offend everybody. You know, everybody's too easily offended. So I feel like, you know, you don't go out of your way to offend people. It's just going to happen these days. It doesn't matter what you do, right? I feel like literally it doesn't matter what you do. You can try your hardest to make everybody happy and you're still going to offend somebody. So we don't pick the models we're going to paint because of boobs, TNA, or anything like that. Matter of fact, there's been a lot of models that I've said I wouldn't paint on stream because of the excess. And a lot of them are Kingdom Death models, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. I feel like Poots is just being over the top to be over the top in a lot of cases, just to prove he can. So, more power to him, but I'm not gonna paint some of that stuff. I think Kingdom Death had an opportunity to do something really cool with their male pinups, but instead they made all their male pinups in real stupid poses. Right? Whoever sculpted them, I feel like, doesn't get it and mostly sculpts women, and so decided to sculpt men as pinups, and the pinups came out being in these weird female, like very feminine positions, where I don't know. I mean, that's just me. Like, I'm thinking if I wanted a male pinup, wouldn't it be better as like a fireman calendar kind of thing? Like a dude with an axe? You know, a manly man with an axe? I don't know, maybe that's me. I don't feel like a dude dressed in a bunny suit pouting like you know, like a female model really drove the point home to a lot of hobbyists. Whereas I'd have been the first one to pull on a model on stream if they'd have done, like, you know, a male pinup that was done in kind of a, I don't know, what am I trying to say? Like in a male way, a masculine way? I don't think it's masculine necessarily. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Still trying to bring my brush strokes up towards the bright spot, which is around this area. Blending as I go. Oh, sorry, I'm way off stream. Oops. That's how I can avoid showing butt cheeks on stream. I just don't center them on the camera. They weren't on tantalizing display. Want half-naked man butt as well as abs for days. All right. Well, if I ever get back to that model, I will run it past you and get the right. You know, Elizabeth Beckley Bradford and Shoshi and all those girls, the female painters out in the industry that are all over the internet talking about it. When they saw me doing the striker one, they were like, "He needs more Adonis belt," and I was like, "I don't even know what that means." So I Google it and I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, that's why I don't know what that means. I've never had one of those." And I gotta admit, right? Like, if you're gonna have a male pinup, he needs the Adonis belt showing, because that does it. That's the way that works. Alderon Ale, that's a good one too. It's in limited reserve now. Get it? See what I did there? An aberration, is that how that works? A big muscular railroad worker swinging a big hammer grins. Fabio. Well, yeah, okay, but maybe that, I mean, Fabio, I don't know that I really care about Fabio, right? But I feel like you know, the front of those bad novels in the grocery store do it pretty well, right? They got big, masculine-looking dudes, you know. I don't know who likes that though, right? I mean, like, I don't know. Does that turn girls on? Does that turn guys on? I don't know who their crowd is, so somebody would have to tell me. I just mentally in my head, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like the girls in a feminine, you know, pose, like with their sword, and they've got their hip thrown out. You know, like she's got her hip thrown out, and they've got a very feminine stance. But if you did like a half-naked dude pin-up stormtrooper, and he had this same stance, I don't feel like you're doing a service to the ability to do a male pin-up, right? I feel like you put him in a more like a, I don't know if it's a working man pose. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know if I'm digging myself a hole. I just feel like there should be a difference between the two. Don't put the guy in the female kind of pose and then just show him half naked. I don't feel like that does anything. Like, but maybe I'm obviously not the crowd they're shooting for, you know. Sounds like the male pinups they made were more made as parodies of the female ones instead of actually trying to be male pinup. Maybe panache. I mean, that could be a point of what they were trying to do too. I don't know. I don't know the story behind it. But I guarantee I would have been painting, you know, male pinups if they would have been like I said, I use the term firefighter calendar, right? Because that's kind of, or like Thunder from Down Under that you see on the billboards in Las Vegas, that kind of stuff. Dragon, how am I going to paint that G-string? Very carefully. Very carefully. Fabio hair. Oh, God. He has like the horrible, well, like the perfect horrible hair, right? Oh, you've got Fabio hair? What? Women can't keep their hands out of your hair? I don't know if that's a good thing, is it? Chat needs to Google the Adonis belt. So since we're on the topic, Ultra Mega, you're looking for non-pinup version of Saber that comes not painted? Of Saber? Who's Saber? Non-pinup of Saber. What's Saber? You want the goddamn firefighter calendar in your mail, Mayonnaise, Hannah? I'm saying I think it would work. I think that they would get it. I think both guys and girls would paint those a lot more. You know? But I don't know. Apotheosis male fig, Drakenfar. I haven't seen that one, I don't think. Maybe. Saber from Fate. I don't know who this is. Anime from Fate. Oh, gotcha. Seeing Fabio get hit in the face by a bird was a magical TV moment. Did this happen? That's a thing? I'm not a Fabio historic person. I don't know anything about the guy. I recognize him when he's on commercials, right? They have a lot of horrible commercials with him in them, where I think he's making fun of himself, which kudos to that. I feel like that's pretty cool. Again, even though this paint isn't super bright, I can continue to make areas brighter and brighter just by layering it up. Because even tanned flesh in the bottle is brighter than what we're seeing. Now we're getting there, right? Over here, we're getting to the point where it's achieving almost the hue and value that it is in the bottle, right? Whereas in other places, until we layer it up, we get the opportunity to allow it to be a little bit darker over that fur brown that we use as a base coat. So again, one of the powers of continually painting with thin paints allows you to control just how a paint looks on the model without having to go to mixing and worrying about it, right? You just have to watch your layering, continually bring it up more and more and more, shrink the area that you paint down further and further and further, so that you're only building paint up in a limited portion. And you'll get those highlights start to come alive very, very quickly. All right, we're building up a real natural look to her buns. Need to brighten up a little bit on this thigh. The brighter you get certain areas of skin, so like in the case of working on top of her butt here, as we brighten these areas up, other areas around this part of the model are going to start to look darker and darker and darker. All right, so the thighs, even though we already put a little bit of highlight on it, we can recognize that. We need to brighten that up a little bit to bring it more in line with what we've done here. So not too much, but we are going to just continue to run another layer of brightness up underneath. Like so. And that starts to match a little bit better to the color that we've got up top. We don't want it at the exact same value because obviously it's lower. It's a little bit more in shadow, but you always got to consistently judge each area of the model and say, okay, how dark is that going to be versus everything else that I've done around it? Starting to look pretty good. Like we didn't do, we haven't done the front of her thighs. Look at how dark the rest of the skin looks immediately in these areas where we haven't touched it at all versus, where we started layering up. And that's only two colors. That's just the fur brown. There's no pre-highlight on this. Well, very little. We didn't pre-highlight the skin. All we did on the airbrush work was just the armor itself. So nothing for the skin. So we're literally building all of this up from virtually zero. True neutral. Azrael, what's going on, man? Welcome back. A Rebels tramp stamp? No, we were just talking about, though, I like the idea of like the tanning stickers. So somebody, I think on Friday we had talked about it either being a TIE fighter or an Imperial logo or a Darth Vader helmet. I don't know how detailed I can get, right? Because like I can put it on her butt cheek back here to where, the stickers that they use at the tanning booth, you put a sticker on and then you tan, and so it'll be a pale area in and amongst the rest of the skin tone. So we'll work the rest of the skin tone up and then come back and paint like a pale doohickey on her cheek if we want. We'll take a look at it as we go. It may be too much and too over the top. I haven't determined yet. I'm not opposed to the idea, but it would have to be something that would work. Like a Darth Vader helmet, I don't know that we could tell what it looked like. It might look a little, obscene. A TIE fighter would be cool, right? It's just two lines and a line in the middle and then a circle. So a TIE fighter, I think people would understand what that was. And we could do that and have it be The Imperial Cog might be a little too detailed, right? It may have to be like our whole butt cheek, and we're trying to avoid it be that big of a thing before somebody, you know, notice what it is. If you have any estimate on when the Army Painter Mega Sets will be back in stock, old tees? Oh, geez, we just sold out this last weekend, man. We sold 5 this last weekend, which is awesome, but our distributor's out, everybody's out. So I'm not sure how to answer you. I'm going to talk to Jonas from the Army Painter this week and see if I can get some sent direct. If they don't have any in stock, then it'll be a while, because I think they were making them. I think they just gave away some, Army Painter did, for their like 10-year anniversary or 5-year anniversary or something like that. I'm hoping to have them back in stock soon. So just keep asking, and I'll keep updating you on when they're going to be. I just got to restock before stream. I only got time before the stream to put the Stynylrez primers back in stock. I've got a few paint colors like Spaceship Exterior, Wasteland Soil. A couple of the colors that were out of stock are back in as well, and I'll put them up as soon as the stream is over. We got some new stuff. We got the pigment set stuff from Vallejo. I think I mentioned that last week. We got that in last week. So, Aberration, you just poured out 90% of your Runefang steel. Oh no! What? You just like spilled it, or poured it out? Makes it seem like you didn't want it. Does spill match what you did better? That sucks. Darth Jameson just wants to see his paint butts all day long. Should sign the model. I'm an artist. Put a slow fuse symbol on that on the butt. No, we're not gonna. Somebody did say a snail, but again, it's too small. Like the scale of it is so small that I don't think our snail logo would make sense. The little heart with a bomb wick coming out of it could be a thing on the butt that we could do. But yeah, I know, KTP. We will. We normally hold a bunch in stock. We just sold them all. Coming up for the holidays, I'm assuming that like paint sets and stuff are going pretty well. Obviously, they did. That we sold out. We don't ever carry more than about 5 in stock, so I'll try to up the number of them. Maui Blood, you're still having problems with brushes splitting? Send me pictures, because if you're getting bad brushes, we'll replace them. You poured it into the crapper. It was just pure medium? Oh, gotcha. Gotcha, Nab. So you did do it on purpose. That's good. Gotcha. I understand. All right. What were we doing? Front. All right, so we've got, again, I'm always looking at, okay, when I've got this inner thigh, what's the brightest spot going to be? And the brightest spot, like you can judge from our lamp in here, the shadow on the part of her abdomen coming into shadow, and then the thigh muscles coming out of that, it's going to be right here where it's brighter to you guys. So we're just going to start pulling brighter paint into that area and building it up kind of in the center there, and then reverse my brush stroke, and again, just back and forth it. All the way through this area. Again, I want to avoid as much texture on the skin as possible, so smooth my strokes as I go. I'm using very, very light strokes. Barely touching the brush to the model at all right in there. There's this ligament, tendon that comes right out of the crotch region, the groin, right? Your groin muscles. So that's going to give us a detail right in here that we can kind of brighten up. Not too much, but a little bit. And then I just want all of this brightness to kind of disappear up into the belt line for shadow. like we've got. And it's going to take a couple more layers, right? It's looking good. I've got brightness down low, and then it kind of disappears, but it's still a little dark up top. But if I keep working that, it's just going to pull the paint apart. So we're going to leave it as it is right now. Go ahead and join these areas from the back of the thigh into the front real quick. Like, I mean, every part of model painting and every part of painting in general, even if you decide to do like two-dimensional canvas, you still in your head are having to figure out before you apply paint, right? You're still having to figure out, all right, where do I want my brightness? Where is the angle on this, right? If you have ever taken a photography class, right? Most of art is all about the eye, right? It's all about figuring out, you know, where's your shot? Where is the best look? You know, on painting 3D models like what we do, it's all about looking at it and saying, okay, where am I going to get the most effect out of a highlight, out of a shadow, right? Given the shape of the model. And sometimes, like in this case, it's going to be literally dictated by anatomy. What does the body do? And the pose of the model, right? So the sculptor has done a great job on this model of giving us a lot to work with regards to like how the body would look in this position, right? So any muscle detail that would be there is there for the most part, right? We're missing a little bit, but not much. Like in the back of the knees and stuff, it's not even a big deal. So we just kind of paint to the sculpt and make sure that our colors kind of match the pose. But you're always, if you're doing it right, you're always taking the time, right, before you even apply the brush to the model to kind of look at the pose, right? This hip's thrown out, so obviously I've got highlight that's going to come across the entire upper part of this thigh. So I have to determine how that's going to play into the inner side of the thigh here. And obviously it's going to be brighter up towards the top where hip is thrown out to the side. So I'm going to continue to paint from the inner thigh out to the hip, building up color on the outside there. And then letting that eventually dip back down into the brightness that we want on the inner thigh here, which can't be too bright because you can't have this same brightness go all the way across. But for this paint, because this is only our second color, it may be that you wind up with this whole section being about the same brightness, the same value, and then you pump it up with the next color. Like I'm always saying, one of the hardest things to remember is that you still have more colors to go. So don't try to do all of the wonders on the model with just this. Because if I spend time blending this in with our base coat, creating shadows and stuff, and then I might get to a point real quick where my next color doesn't have any spot to land. So for now, we've got about the same value coming all the way around the cylinder of the leg there. Now I don't want to leave this area up here pure darkness either. Right? So I want to come in and just layer in less of the paint color up in here. Take a couple levels to do that, but now we're starting to get a little bit more skin tone. You can see the sheen as it goes up and around her bikini line and up towards the belt. I maintain some shadow, but I also get some color up in there too. Speaking of Steinerez, why do I always have to be? I'm not always right, but Steinerez is really good. Once you get used to using it, it's the best primer out there, in my opinion. Maui blood. Yeah, see, if your brain is tuned to being more logical, then sometimes you can find creativity out of all that logical process that your brain likes to use. I mean, that's how mine is, right? I mean, I've always drawn, I've always painted, I've always sculpted, I've always made things since a very, very small child. I was an only kid for most of my life. My mom remarried and started having kids when I was like 8 or 10. But literally, I was one of those developmental kids that by the time I hit 8 or 10, I was ready to take over the world. So my whole childhood had already happened, and I was already in my own brain. So having sisters never really meant, I'm not going to say it didn't mean anything to me, but I didn't interact with them like, a brother and sister, having sisters around you your whole life. It just wasn't like that for me. I was kind of an only kid. But my brain was already wired creatively, and then I always wondered how things worked at the same time. So I'm kind of cursed and blessed at the same time, I think. But that's why I like to talk about things like this, right? We're doing female troopers. Bear this? Well, it's a pinup model from Kabuki Miniatures. And it's a limited edition. Well, I don't know that the Stormtrooper is, but the Boba Fett one is. We've got 3 of these. We've got Darth Vader, Boba Fett, and a Stormtrooper that are all female pinups that we're painting out throughout the month of Star Wars, December, to celebrate the new movie coming out and just being Star Wars nerds in general. And I love what Kabuki has done. Very tastefully done pinups, right? Not lewd in any way. Just fun. Good sculpts. Fantastic sculpts, not just good. Fantastic sculpts. Both from an anatomy standpoint and just from a storytelling perspective. I really, really just love the simplicity of this one. But what we're talking about, is, with regards to the whys that we do things, for most people, will be the thing that actually gets you to understand it and apply it and make it your own. And not enough people spend time doing that, right? Especially in painting and creative endeavors in general. It's very easy to just look for something that looks similar to the look you're going for and then recreate it, copy it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We all use reference material from time to time. If I need to paint something that I've never painted before, a giraffe or something, whatever, then you go find reference material and you look to copy it. We did it on the troll, right? We found some reference material of frog skin and we turned it into our own, but having a good knowledge of why things happen so that when you see a picture of a giraffe, you can kind of understand why it's highlighted and darkened the way that it is and so on and so forth, helps a ton. And a lot of people miss that and they just copy for content. And then when they go to do the next model, they're not any better at it. And I always get that question in one-on-ones, hey, I've really tried, I've gone through and I've done this and I did what I saw here and it turned out really good, but on this model I can't make it work. And I'm like, well, yeah, because this model's a totally different shape. So whereas you painted that other sword this way or you painted that other piece of armor this way, it worked because the direction of the lighting, yada, yada, yada. And then we get into the whys of how lighting works and why it makes the paint look that way and so on and so forth. And then you start to get it. Then hopefully it starts to click. You're like, oh, so now any model that gets thrown in front of you, you can handle it because you're starting to look at the model for its pose, and its light source and things like that, as opposed to just the doohickeys it's got on it. It's got a sword, it's got armor, it's got this, it's got that. This is how I paint this and that and the other. And you start to deal more in why and how, which ultimately turns you into being able to do anything that is set in front of you. A lot of people ask me, what's the scariest thing for me to paint? I can't literally think of anything that scares me to paint. Not because I've mastered everything, but because I've become fearless enough in my trying to master a lot of stuff that I really don't care, right? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm going to look at why it does what it does. I'm going to try to push the techniques that I've got to their limits to try to make something happen. And if I can't make it happen, then I'm going to try to learn new techniques, And so that's really what I'm trying to influence you guys with. It's why we do our whip sessions the way we do. It's why I try to look at everybody's work individually for where you are in your own talent and your own story that you're trying to tell with your painting. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's got the same techniques. Not everybody does the same thing with the same techniques that they've learned. And you have to take all that into account. But if I can just get you thinking in terms of, hey, look at the world around you a little bit differently. Uncle Touchy used to say that all the time, right? That now when he goes outside, he looks at everything a lot differently because, like, just rolling around with me going to lunch, we'd see something and talk about it in regards to how the color and the light work off of a car and why it looks the way it does and stuff like that. And you just start to look at the world a little bit differently, and it all can support you in, kind of your creativity, give you new ideas. And then you can start to actually implement those ideas because you'll kind of know why what you're looking at works the way it does. At least that's my hope. I can't, definitely not going to nail it every time. And it's not going to work the same for everybody either, Everybody's learning experience is different. I never got on in art classes very well because I couldn't stand to do something in like a copy kind of a form, right? It's like you don't see me do much of my painting by copying the box art. It's not that I'm against that. It's just that my brain doesn't work that way. My brain looks at it and draws its conclusions as to what I want to see very quickly. And then I can look at references. You know, I could look at this stormtrooper that we got here, right? Her white is a very yellow-brown base, very dirty, as compared to ours that has a very cleaner, or a cleaner gray and blue base. But that's because we wanted it that way. And so I just visualize it and then, you know, set about making it happen. But I didn't get on in art class because the instructors would always be, today we're going to draw a horse. And they'd put up a horse. And they'd be like, everybody draw this horse. And so I draw a horse. And I'd make my horse my own. I'd take the horse and I'd, you know, make it rearing up and kicking its forelegs, even though in the picture it was standing still grazing in a field. I'd do stuff like that. And I wouldn't always get it right because I'd never drawn a horse before. So I'd get the anatomy wrong and whatever. But instead of grading me for the things I didn't know, they graded me based on I didn't draw the horse that was on the screen. And that just irked me to no end. I couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand it. I've heard it said that if you borrow too much from someone else's already done work, you're essentially copying a copy, and if the guy you're copying also uses someone else's material, you're watering it down a lot. Or, well, I mean, the same thing could be said is that, you know, I definitely understand that in the creative world and in the world in general, there's very little that is truly original anymore. Because we as humans borrow from our experiences that we've had in our environment growing up, the things we've seen, the things we relate to. You know, when you talk to the difference between vision and being blind, right? You can still, you have the blind person experiences their world with fewer of their senses, but maybe more in depth with the senses that we don't use as much. And so they would tell a story completely different in the way that they quote unquote see it. And then as they tell that story and they don't really have the same version that we're looking at and relating to, but they are then recreating it from what they've seen. And so as they go through their life and without vision, there can be some repetitiveness in textures and things that they do. With us with vision is no different. We're repetitive. You know, we see a red that we like, we use that red. We see a blue we like, we use that blue. Not that we say it in the same scene or scenario in general that we recognize it in. Obviously, walking out in the world, we don't see stormtroopers half naked. So, but you're bringing in skin tones and things. So there's really not true originality, I don't believe, right? But as you use those things, you could say that if I were to look at something that, say, Genuine Vision did, and then, you know, my task, somebody said, I just want you to paint that exactly the way he did. Well, obviously, I'm not going to be able to paint it exactly the same way it is. I have a different technique, a different brushstroke. I'm left-handed. He's right-handed. I don't know. Are you right-handed, Jan? You still out there? I'm just using you as an example. But he's probably different. He might be right-handed. I'm left-handed, so our brushstrokes are going to look different on a model. So there's always those little particulars. But you could say that as I copy a copy of a copy, eventually you get to where it looks original again because of those little differences. So, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but... Paint a scale anime kit? Why? I don't like them. There's not enough detail on them. I'm not really a fan of the kind of watered down anatomy of anime. I could paint one, sure. I know you love them. I don't like the bad anatomy. It drives me crazy, right? We just did the Nina, the Breath of Fire Nina model. I think that counts, right? But anime models they drive me nuts, right? That's just a personal thing. I love anime for the stories it tells. The anatomy drives me crazy. Long necks and the weird facial placement. Ah! Alright, we still gotta get this area here. Overwhelmed in detail. Yeah, they don't have enough detail. I'm not talking about like Gundam levels of detail. Gundam is overboard sometimes. And I'm not saying I don't like the anime models. I love the stuff that you paint. For me, it's just not interesting enough. I don't know. I don't have a attachment to the characters though either, though, right? So a lot of times that's where that comes from. Is that people are really like when Cybound got the Nina commissioned. It's because it's a character that he has an attachment to from the video games. I guess is that what it was? Cybound, you in here? That I just don't have, right? I don't have an emotional attachment to a lot of this stuff. And so there's nothing to grab me. And when I look at them, because trust me, I've looked at a lot of those. A couple years back, a company contacted me and wanted me to paint a bunch of their, I want to say their 1/8 or maybe 1/16 models. No, not 1/16, because that's like 75 millimeter. They were bigger than that. They were like what you paint. I don't think that's 1/8. I don't remember what it is. 10th scale. I don't know. Whatever those things are. They're like 16 inches, like somewhere between 10 and like 14 inches tall. And they wanted me to paint some of those for them. And I was really thinking about it. It has some really great sculpts. They were really expensive models. But then I found out that they were copying a lot of out-of-press models that they didn't have licenses to, so I turned them down. There's a lot of really bad business in that world too that I don't support. I had no idea about it. It's kind of like when people talk about China Forge for Forge World. There's a lot of those anime models that you got to be. I mean, if you have a responsible moral content, you want to be careful where you buy them because they're just knockoffs of other models that are in either low supply that you can't get because the artist didn't make them in very, large amounts. So in order to keep them rare or whatever, which I can respect. So. Quarter scale, maybe? I didn't think they were quarter scale. Maybe they're 1/6. Maybe they're more like 11 or 12 inches then. You know I don't click links. Non-metallic metal chair, paint along.
I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Dealer of Death, what is going on, my friend? 13 months, holy hell. Thank you. How you doing? Again, if you weren't here at the beginning of the show, hope everybody had a great weekend. Welcome back. Stuck on what will be the longest part of this model, which is all of the skin. I say that'll be the longest part. We haven't started finalizing the white armor. That may be the most torturous part of the model. Odd shape the way they've got the armor. Over here there's this triangle right as her rib cage ends into her belly on the side here. It's tough to get the paintbrush and keep my brush strokes in any kind of coherent fashion here. Be able to blend and not be left with some rough edges there. I think we got it. My paintbrush is hating me right now. Pretty good shadows still up in here in the midsection. Not too deep though. Remember, you don't want to have shadows dip off into a real crazy amount of darkness at this level, because technically this tanned flesh that we're using is still a shade color, right? Just kind of brightening up our shadows. I know it's difficult to kind of understand at that point, but kind of our transition color for making sure that our shadows smooth out into what will be our bright skin tones. Now it's looking pretty good. I like all this. A little bit more down along the belt line on the side here. Here, this you may not be able to see. I got to paint right in there. May put her hair in the way, so I apologize for that. Even though, again, this area of her back is shadowed from the throw of her hips, her hair, her back itself with the arch on the back. This area will be mostly in shadow, but we still want to go ahead and get this color in there at least, because once we start with the brighter colors. TabletopGamer.com. What is going on, Paul? Holy hell, 15 freaking months. Let's get some hype for all these resubs. Thank you, my friends. New subs as well. Lurkers in the background. If you like what you're seeing, hit that follow button. Do it. Do it now. Ray Silver, did you see the Kickstarter for Kabuki's Mother of Dragons? You have to buy it. You just love the feel of the whole piece. Yeah, they're making like a 1/6 too. It's huge. I thought long and hard. I sent them an email, right? And so I'll see what they say. But I'm probably asking the world. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see one of those big ones get picked. But I'd never had the time to do it. We got so much in front of it. That we already have the Dragon Rider coming from Terrible Kids stuff. So, and I got the shipping notification on it. So that's an amazing model. Omeo, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. Hashtag the Empire did nothing wrong. What?
Hey, somebody likes us.
What? Starlet Boy, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, guys and gals. Summernail, honestly, 90% of your kits are Chinese recasts simply because the originals were made 500. Good luck getting one, and you simply can't get an original now. Yeah, and I just don't approve of the recast. So, nothing against you. I just, there's a reason why those are supposed to be, you know, the more people buy the recast, the less value the originals tend to have, and I feel like that is bad business. I also think it's bad business if you only cast enough for like a small amount, unless you're like, if you're a huge business and you're casting like 500 of something, you know, then that's a little shisty sometimes too. But I don't know. The collectible world is there for a reason, right? And people like it. But yeah, I don't believe in recast. A buddy of mine does work in Chinese factories as a QA, end-of-line QA manager and director for multiple companies. So he contracts out to other companies in the States and Western Europe and all that are doing business in China. And he's the English-speaking liaison there that keeps the lines running and makes sure his quality coming off the line is good when you can't have somebody over there all the time. And he actually worked in the factory with a company that part of what their business did was recast, and the Forge World stuff was in there. He doesn't know Warhammer, but he recognized it immediately as something I would be interested in. So he shipped me a box of stuff. He just asked him, and they gave him a box of stuff, and he shipped it over here. And I have a whole box of recast Forge World stuff that he shipped. I just get a thing from him and says, hey, you know, he sent me an email and he goes, hey, I sent you a box, or he asked me for my address. I sent him the address. I go, why? He goes, I'm sending you a box. And he sent me a box, and when I open it up, it's literally got recast Forge World stuff in it. And, you know, and I'm surprised at how good the resin is on some of it, but I haven't tried to put it together, so I don't know if it actually goes together well. You know. But he's like, I can send you all sorts of stuff so you can paint it on your stream. And I'm like, no, that's all right. That's all right. I'm okay. Solomon Grady, thank you for the resub. 4 freaking months. Much appreciated. I told Uncle Touchy in tongue-in-cheek, I was like, we ought to start up a side business selling, you know, Chinese recasts. We have an in. See how fast everybody unfriends us then. Parathis, I hope you're doing well. I see you type and lurk in chat. I hope you're doing well, my friend. I don't get to talk to you near enough anymore. I wish we still played World of Tanks. All right, I feel like we're getting close. We can swap over to another color now. We can go brighter a little bit. Yes, no, maybe? Yes. I feel like yes is the answer. I feel like I might want to brighten up her face a little bit. I feel like we stopped on Friday due to giveaway needs. And I don't feel like I've got as much layering. Like her butt is brighter than her face right now, so let's fix that. Might not have done well in anatomy class, but I feel like that's not the way it's supposed to work. Although anatomy doesn't teach you value, just saying. Again, my brush strokes, I'm working from the ear and the temple region out towards the tip of the cheek. Parts of her forehead here. And then towards the bottom of the jawline, chin, upper lip a little bit. Of course, the ear. Now I got to make sure as I'm doing this that by forcing brightness onto the top of the cheek, that I don't put too much shadow in along our laugh line here. So I got to come in and build up brightness in here too. You wind up getting very, very manly looking features on a model if you continually darken the brow and then the laugh line along the side of the nose and down the curve of the cheek out to the outside of the mouth. If you let that stand in harsh shadow to the rest of your skin tones, especially on a female, you wind up with a very masculine look to them. It gets rid of the smoothness of the musculature in the face. Not the smoothness of skin necessarily, but the musculature in a female face usually isn't that abrupt, whereas a male can have more stark. Not that females can't, but I'm just saying that from our traditional paint a female, the smoothness of the lines is going to be what tells the story a lot, especially in miniature. Obviously, there's lots of things in the anatomy that sells this as a female, but to avoid bringing any kind of weird what the F's are going on, just try to keep the shading on the face to a minimum, and that'll make the muscle seem not as deep. So that if you wind up with a real dark line on the laugh line, it makes that seem very deep. That's what gives it volume. And the more you shove it into the background, the more pronounced the facial muscles look, and it just gives it more of a masculine look. So it can give you one of those moments when you're looking at the face as to, it looks good, but something's not quite right. And so if you just don't make your shadows, don't force them as deep as you would in other places on the body. Same with musculature. You know, if you darken like the shoulder line, the shoulder muscle there, it makes it look really deep. It can give it an overly, like weightlifter sense to it. So if you're doing something that you want to look very feminine, if she's in like a silken robe or something and you just want it to be more feminine, then just don't darken your shadows as much. That's literally like a trick that will work 100% of the time to making sure that it looks more female than male. The only recast you want are sororitas. Metal just too heavy. Do they make them? Does somebody do resin sororitas? I know they do the ones from... Oh, do they? Does Raging Heroes have like Sisters of Battle kind of models? I don't mind the third-party stuff as long as it's not a direct rip-off of something that like Game Workshop makes. Like, I'm not a fan of the ones, and that's just a personal thing, you know. I see a lot of the third-party stuff that are pretty much direct rip-offs. You know, like Kenny painted something on his stream not too long back that was an Ogren, but they call it like an Ubermensch from another, lineup of games. It just looked like some of the old Ogren models. It was still a lot of fun, right? It just was kind of a direct rip-off of GW stuff. It's you buying China Forge World recast is bad because Forge World is still making them, but anime kits go out of print in weeks. Yeah, but but again, it's because they're trying to make them collectibles. So I get it. Blend, blend, blend. Is that what it is? I don't know makeup. Impressive sternocleidomastoids? I don't even know what that is. Orc Pride. Now you're looking at, you're Googling anatomy that I don't understand. Yeah, see, Telemachus just like that, like the the Dragon Rider model that we're getting to paint on stream. There were only 100 made, right? So we got lucky. We reached out to them early on, and they wanted us to paint it on stream. So yay us! But yeah, there's only 100 and no redos on that one. So you'll probably see that recast. And again, I feel like that's chintzy, right? Like if I miss out on a sculpt of something, it's a bummer. But I don't feel like I should rob the artist of the money attributed to the original sculpt by going and buying a recast someplace, because that's really what does it. It's like why you don't download free music, right? But we don't need to get into it. I know. I'm an old guard with regard to that, because I've been in the creative business world for a long time, and every time somebody does something that steals your work, you don't make any money on it, and you're literally living penny to penny as an artist a lot of time. Solomon Grady, yeah, Raging Heroes does make some nice SOB proxies. Yeah, then I feel like those would be really cool. I know somebody at one point in time made female like Terminator Marines and stuff like that, but they were really goofy. Like they had crop tops and crazy stuff. I feel like they were over the top, kind of sexy for the reason of being sexy, when that's not what I want from a female in battle armor, right? I want them to look like men, Well, you get it. I want female faces, but I don't want, tight-fitting armor and high heels. I'm not one of those. I don't feel like that works. On this, it does, because it's a pinup. It's meant to be tongue-in-cheek. So this thing is a joke. You want GW plastic girls. You cry every day that they aren't giving them to me. Yeah. My feel on that with regards to the Sisters of Battle stuff is that the army itself isn't well enough fleshed out to actually have them be able to do enough to make it worthwhile producing. I would trust, and I've said it on stream before, that the same thing exists now that existed back when I worked for GW. The reason why we couldn't support Sisters of Battle was because not enough people buy it, right? There's not enough to flesh out the army. It's like a support army. There's only a few things you can make before it starts to look exactly like Guard or exactly like Space Marines. And so then what do? You got to write rules for it. Does it work exactly like Guard and Space Marines? Then just make female Guard. I would be okay if they just made a bunch more female sculpts for Guard. I'm with you. We've learned through the books, their own narratives, that you can do amazing things as a female in the Emperor's Imperial Guard, right? Read the Gaunt's Ghost stuff. They've got heroes and heroines doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And don't make it something where I have to convert it all the time. I don't want to have to buy bits all the time and kit bash this thing and that thing. I feel like just make me a female Imperial Guard troop box. That'll be the bits I can change over to make my heavy infantry that way if I want to, and all that stuff. Hey, baby. How are you? How was your day? Look, it's a unicorn. It's a unicorn. Say hi, Jen. Ooh, you smell nice. After a whole day? Well, maybe I like women BO.
Oh, they're creepy. You are weird like that.
I am a little weird like that. I'm not weird like that. Don't listen to him. What color am I applying now? Armin's Wrath. This is tanned flesh. So it's the color that we normally use as our base coat for most of our skin tones. So it's actually fairly dark. But because we're using it over the fur brown, we're getting a lot of mileage out of it as a first level kind of highlight or a shade highlight. I don't know. I never know what to tell you guys I call this because it doesn't really have a name. It's still a shadow color. We're going to force this into the shadows more and more as we go. But for now, it's doing its job as a first level highlight, so to speak. But yeah, tan flesh. From the Army Painter. And now we're done with tan flesh. Oh, no, we're not. We got to do these elbow things. It's only taken us an hour and a half to apply, like, no paint at all. I've been gabbing a lot. That's my thing with Sisters of Battle. I feel like it's something that everybody wants, but they wouldn't make enough revenue on long term. Because to turn Sisters of Battle into their own army, it intrudes on what Space Marine do, it intrudes on what Guard does, and so at some point in time you have to cut your losses and say, well, we're just not going to have them. But then you got to give, I feel like you need to do something different, right? Female Guard would take the place of that. I feel. Or retcon the rules and give us female Space Marines. I don't care. I I'm not one that's going to hold on to females can't be Space Marines. Their bodies don't do. Come on, man. Get over yourself. Don't lie to me and tell me that chick Space Marines wouldn't be one of the most badass things you've ever seen. 8-foot tall chicks in combat armor that was like Primaris Marines. I'd go for that any day of the week. Hell, just give me good head swaps. The Primaris Marine armor could fit a girl inside of it without any alterations. They don't need boob armor. Just give me good female heads. A good female head sprue that has the socket like the Space Marine stuff. You know? That would go a long way. Don't think I wouldn't make an entire female Space Marine army. I think that one of the things that pushes the reality of a war-torn future history, any fictional thing, is that if it's as bad as you say it is, wouldn't everybody be fighting their ass off to save humanity? Everybody, you know? I want like a child legion, you know. I want like a female legion of Space Marines. I want like children that aren't servitors, you know. I want kids that are like ammo loaders. I want everybody. I want like the whole Starship Troopers thing that Rob has. I'm doing my part, even though that wasn't part of the book, you know. They need to go to SLA 3D printing and make it so detailed that folks will prefer to buy the real deal. Who? Totally Toobly Tuesday, Armin. What's going on there? Different chapters of Space Marines and gave them distinct sculpts. You bet they'd sell like hotcakes? Distinct cool stuff for each order of sororitas? Is that what you're saying? But again, think of the work behind that, right? And would it detract from Space Marine sales? And the answer, I believe, is yes. And so they won't do it. Now, GW could tell me I'm wrong, right? But I've been in business for a long time, and one of the biggest things you don't do is step on your best-selling product to create some other product that the minority of people in your clientele demand. You know, it's a strange deal, business, right? Furry stormtrooper, so bad, so bad. Now, yeah, fur. Dark Jameson, being a noob on the channel, am I a fan of the Army Painter paint? You're all for it. They have damn near the same colors as GW and their paints are thinner. Yeah, we use it a lot. I mean, that's all we're using for the skin so far, right? We've been using Fur Brown, Tan Flesh. Our next color is Barbarian Flesh that we're going to move to. I use a lot of Army Painter. I've got in my paint racks over here, we've got a tremendous amount of Army Painter mixed in with Vallejo. Those are really the only things we've got. But I mean, you know, there's Model Air sitting right next to Army Painter. Right, so I don't arrange them in any way. They're just spread out here. But I've got the full line of Army Painter in the rack. There's only probably a few colors that I don't have here because I like the Vallejo color, or I was already using like the Vallejo color instead. But there's a lot of repetition in here too. But yeah, I'm all for it, and I don't preach a brand of paint. You know, I told Jonas originally that like I don't. You know, it's not like a sponsorship thing because I don't say, oh, you know what the best paint in the world is, because it doesn't exist, right? I feel like a lot, you'll find us mix Army Painter with Vallejo, with whatever we got. I make my own white, you know, because nobody makes a good white, even the Army Painter included. So I just use whatever hues. You know, if we talk about rule of cool with models, I feel like rule of cool with paint is doubly important. You can make any paint work. Some take a little more thinning. Some require a little bit of medium put in with them, you know, to kind of thicken them up. But I don't ever find a problem with any of them, you know. Some metallics will turn you off to the point where you'll never use them. That I will admit. If you like using metallic paints, you probably have a set of metallics that you really like, and I can't fault you for that because metallics all work a lot differently. Some of them are real blotchy. Some of them don't move right. Stuff like that. So, Armin's 5 months in a row. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, if you guys are having problems with your number zeros or your number double zeros, I have had, right in the last week, I've had 2 or 3 notes come in with regards to that. we've been checking all of them. Like, I take them out of the pack, I look at them, and they look good starch. But if you remove the starch and you clean it, and you see a fraying on your small brushes, let me know. I'm dealing with a factory on it right now. It seems to be only the zeros and the double zeros. So I'm not sure what that problem is. But any help you guys can give me to understand, and I'll get you new ones sent out, but I won't send you out more bad ones. We're trying to figure out what's going on with that. But check yours if you've ordered them, right? Because I just sent out another double zero today to a customer. We had only, in the history of doing the brushes, we'd only ever sent out 2 replacement brushes before Friday, and now I've sent out 2 more. So it worries me that maybe the second batch of brushes that we got in, maybe the zeros and double zeros on some of them are a little wonky. What's been happening is that some of the hairs are just a little off size. It seems like a couple of them are long, and when that happens, if the whole bunch isn't the same length, then it causes the brush to curve or split, regardless of how clean it is. So let us know. I've been asking everybody to shoot me pictures. Don't do it on here. Shoot it to my email or contact us through the site. Don't put them up here because you know I won't look at them. So. Shinkai, you used the titanium white from Liquitex. Yeah, titanium white will do it. It'll give you the brightest white you can get. I mean, that's what we use as a base for our slow fuse white. Not the Liquitex, but titanium white as a color. Exo Armor leaders on Matrix 3? Exo Armor. Were those the big walker things? Is that what Exo Armor was? Sidebound, but would it bring in new clients that wouldn't have normally bought it? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think there are people waiting in the wings to be part of GW's world that are just waiting on Sisters of Battle. I don't think that's a thing. I feel like we do a disservice when we say that we don't have as many females in the hobby because we don't have enough female models. I think that's a disservice. That's like saying all girls need to play with Barbies and stay away from G.I. Joe. I feel like we don't have enough females in the hobby because we don't make the hobby welcoming enough, and it's ruled by males right now. And by welcoming enough, I just don't feel like anything is marketed in a sense that shows women in general enjoying what we do. I say this all the time, you really only need to change the world by showing people enjoying it in a real situation instead of making up all this fake nonsense like it's just a bunch of dudes. And right now it is, right? But, you know, I feel like, because all of the, let me think. Like, I'm not going to be able to remember all of the women that I've known in the hobby so far, but I can say kind of unequivocally, whatever that word is, that all of them have been drawn to the hobby for either the hobby of just painting in general, and they love the creatures and whatever you get, just like a guy would. It's no different. And some in cases of the tactics of the tabletop play, right? So, you know, I mean, just the same reasons that anybody's attracted to it, but it just doesn't, it's not marketed, right? Number one, our world isn't marketed in general, right? I mean, you don't find TV ads and you don't find magazine ads in like magazines that people actually read, you know, it's very insular. And so as long as that's the case, you're just not going to have, unless you have guys that are very, you know, like me showing the hobby to Jen and Jen liking the painting part of it. I mean, that's really what it takes, and you can't rely on that to grow a section of the industry if what you're trying to do is include more of a, you know, a cumulative hobby for men and women, right? But I think it's a disservice to say that women would come to the hobby in droves if we just made female figures. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's the case. I saw it, Armin's. It just came through late for me. I don't know if that's fair. I mean, how do you guys feel? Yeah, don't order paints on Amazon, by the way. Most of what you find on Amazon, I feel like, that's at the real good cost is like excess stock that's been bought from distributors. It's been sitting on a shelf for so long that you can't trust what its quality is. It's not always the case, but trust me, I've gotten some bad stuff off of there. Making more female miniatures couldn't hurt. Well, I just think making more female miniatures would be cool in general. You don't get to have a say because your wife has been in the hobby for 15 plus years. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, you know, if they like it, they like it. I'm not saying don't make the miniatures. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't make female miniatures. I've said let's make female miniatures. Let's make it more of an integrated world, because you're trying to sell me a world of total war, and yet for some reason, what, women are cooking food someplace? I feel like we're missing something. There need to be more females, right? But I said, but I don't think that that's intrinsically why we don't have more women in the hobby, right? Ragnar, yeah, I agree. That's what we talked about. I think lots more female guard would be awesome. Just a female guard sprue. Heads, because I don't think you need torsos. I don't think you need to call out female anatomy necessarily. I mean, to an extent, the guard anatomy is horrible, the same way Space Marine anatomy was horrible. So if they could do a rework of Imperial Guard that brought the anatomy more into line of human sizing, not this weird torsos all out of whack, legs are too short thing, because that with a female head on it's going to look a little wonky. But if you had the anatomy right, like Primaris Marines, if you had a good female head sprue, they would look awesome in Primaris bodies, because now the body is on par for what a human size really is. And there's nothing that makes it masculine versus feminine. The barrel chest of a Space Marine could be whatever sex, I don't feel like you need to call out attention to breast detail. I mean, like this armor right here would be absolutely impossible to wear if you had a hard shell armor with boob holes in it. I mean, really? Like, how uncomfortable are you trying to make women in their armor? So, from a realism standpoint, I don't think you even need to do that. But I think they need to change the anatomy. If you just took the current guard models and put female heads on them, they look wonky because the proportions are all off. They're not male, they're not female, they're just weird cartoony things. But yeah, I'm in total agreement. I would sign whatever petition got said to put more females out there without making them overly, without having them all be like this, all pinup stuff. Because while somebody said, a lot of third-party manufacturers make good female models, a lot of them do, but a lot of them are over the top, like bikinis, high heels, stuff like that. I want more aliens, right? I want more let's rock and less, runway model in my hobby. Representation is important. Making the culture less steeped in toxic masculinity and misogyny is also part of it. I don't like the word toxic, but I get where you're coming from. Your ass being grabbed when you go to the GW store. Have you ever had your ass grabbed when you've gone to the GW store, or are you just saying that? And I'm not calling you out, but you say it happens there more than any other geeky place you go to. You are in the wrong town. I've been alive and going to hobby stores longer than most of you have been alive. I can't say most of you, but then more than some of you have been alive, and I have never once in all my life heard of anything like that. Now, maybe it's because it's not being talked about, but it also kind of infuriates me because I'm like, wow, I'm not going to these stores. And I've traveled the country and the world, and I've never seen anybody having anything but fun, unless they're arguing about a game, people getting bent out of shape, but I've never seen any of this. That's ridiculous, Hannah. There's no call for that, right? There's no excuse to be made for that. So I would implore you to, as a community, do better, but I don't know how to fix that. I've never seen anything like that happen. And I've been around doing this for a long time. Yeah, Azrael. Yeah, Jen likes painting, but doesn't really want to play very many games. Yeah, the Eldar have always had more, they've always just been a more feminine, looking with elves in general. And same with fantasy. You had females in the wood elves and stuff like that forever. Their leaders were female and things like that. So, uniboob armor. Exactly. Jailbirds. Yeah, jailbirds. Exactly, Ray Silver. And I have jailbirds, or I bought jailbirds to put my Necromunda gang together, right? That never wound up happening. But that was a goal, because the Raging Heroes jailbird stuff is really, really good. It's still feminine, but they look like they're there to do business. Right? They're there to blow shit up. You've been in a fair few fistfights over derogatory comments to or passes to your wife at hobby stores? Man, I feel for you guys. I've never seen anything like that. Your butt's not for the community? Note to self. Drac, what's going on? You guys are touching on things that I don't see. It's weird, right? I mean, I know that everybody has their own experience, and I just have never, ever seen that in a hobby store. I've never been... I mean, I know that hobbyists are not impervious to being chauvinist pigs and retards like, the rest of the world out there, but I just haven't seen it, I've heard the language, which it can be disheartening. I've heard people talk about, I wouldn't want to play with a girl, but, I mean, in conversation... you've been able to talk them down from that ledge in most cases, but I don't know that it's ever been a thing. I know that in the in the world of like Magic the Gathering. You know, I knew back east, I knew tons of females that played at a high competitive level for Magic the Gathering. I can't remember any of them having stories like that. That doesn't mean they didn't exist. I'm not trying to limit it or make it seem like it's not a thing either. Don't get me wrong. It surprises me, right? I see people talk about it and I'm like, wow, I've never seen this happen. All right, I'm moving on to Barbarian Flesh now. Let's start on the face, I guess. Again, same painting direction. I want to come from the darkness of the temple out towards the outside of the cheek. Here. Eyelid and brow. Same exact thing we did before, but now I want to reduce the amount of coverage. Right? I don't want to have this bright color cover as much of the model as the last tone did, or the last color did. It's not a tone. I got to try to... I keep telling myself I'm going to try to make the language what it really is supposed to be, as opposed to using these knee-jerk words that as miniature painters we tend to use. Tone is the wrong word to use. Knock off most of the paint so I can come in here and just kind of smooth all this. Again, I want to make sure that I don't get too dark up underneath the cheek here. Come in here and smooth out those lines, stipple as much as I can, just kind of keep it from becoming a Joker looking laugh line there. That's much better. I still keep a little bit of a shadow, which I want, but I don't want it to be a hard, like, you know, cleft in her cheek. Again, it starts looking too masculine at some point. Same thing can happen with the darkness coming out of the temple, right? Guard would be the easiest to add female units to, but aren't the Sisters of Battle part of the Inquisition? Yeah, I think they made them Ordo. Not, is it Ordo Hereticus? Was that what it was? Somebody have to tell me. I forget. Yeah, I don't feel like Sisters of Battle add enough to an army as a thing. It's the same reason why Inquisitorial just has like Grey Knights are really all you got, right? And then a couple of add-on units that work. And Sisters of Battle, just what would you do? Do they do the same thing? I think GW is trying to move away from identical, like carbon copy armies so that they can focus on things, because as you move into plastics, the tooling, the up-tooling to get an army done is a lot more. So your investment math changes quite a bit, right? When you're making metal miniatures, believe it or not, the ability to make a metal miniature is a lot less expensive than to make that same miniature in plastic up front. So, you know, you got to commit if you want to make plastic miniatures. You're saying, okay, we're going to get behind this, and this is going to be a thing, and it's got to make us this much money, and yada yada. And I feel like that's probably where we're stuck with GW and Sisters of Battle right now, is that they're probably doing the math and thinking that it doesn't make enough sense to create enough units to create an army that gets a book and does all this stuff that goes along with it in the game, and then also, you know, make enough money back for that initial outlay for the plastics. I think they'd be much better off doing a female upgrade sprue, or just have it be half female, half male in each of the guard, you know, unit boxes and things like that. Or they come with, you know, because right now on the plastic sprues, you get a lot of alternating heads. Just give me female and male heads in the guard, you know, and upcharge it $3 for $4 for the box, maybe. I don't know. Just spouting off the top of my head. Yeah, I agree. I think most of the Raging Hero stuff is pretty tastefully done. There's still a lot of high heels and stuff, but they work. Yeah, exactly, Ogre. Like, I'm saying it from a position, like, if I saw, especially if it were somebody, like, if I took Jen to a store and Jen got groped, I'd be in jail, right? So, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that would stand up for any woman that was getting that kind of treatment in a game store. So I don't know that my feelers are out for it 100%, but I guarantee if I'd have heard about it, I'd have been chest up with somebody that was pulling that shit. And it's just never happened. It's happened a lot in, like, bars. I've seen a lot more women get mistreated in the normal world than I have in the geek world, but, you know, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm not trying to belittle it. Witch Hunters, that's right. Pete, does it come with a base, or are we making one? It does not come with a base. Oh, it does. Maybe it does. I don't remember. It might come with, like, just a plastic round base. I can't remember now, and I don't know where the box is. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It comes with just a slot base kind of thing, right? It also has a gun, right? But it just comes with a slot base. But I'm making a custom base for it. I'll be doing it on like a wood block with some sculpted beach stuff because we're going to have her on the beach, kind of like a beer commercial type deal, right? So where there'll be like a blanket with a cool, we're trying to come up with a Star Wars themed alcoholic beverage that we can paint the logo on a beach towel. We'll make a beach towel out of green stuff or something and do it like on a beach with waves coming up. I just feel like she's got that total like, oh my God, I'm glad the week is done and she's taking the weekend off at the beach. So, yes, I know. Here we are talking about how great it would be to have females that didn't, you know, that look more aliens than runway models. And here I am painting a pinup. I'm having fun doing it too. I ain't mad. But yeah, models like this I can't see just putting on a regular base. Again, just as thin with this, but I'm being much more careful with the placement of this bright color so that it blends in with all my base layers, but also starts picking out a little bit more of the detail. Tops of the muscles, you know, I'll draw it out towards the front of the throat here. You got to be careful. Watch how you brighten the front of the throat. You don't want to have it look like there's Adam's apple or any of that going on, which is easy to do if you over brighten. Watch your shadows. Again, there's a big difference in the way you paint. Females, if you want them to look more feminine, which obviously with this one we do, just the pose and the sculpt call for it. Over a man in the same pose. Right? You want your blends to be ultra smooth. You don't want too tremendous of a darkness, like even underneath the jawline and going down into the neck. You know, we want to keep smoother blends working so that the skin seems smoother. Right? I'll say it again. Every time you have a dark shadow, it gives it a depth on the model that makes, you know, strong clefts in the skin. So you got to be very careful about that. I just want to make sure all these shadows are pretty smooth. Blends are looking good. We still have shadows for the cheek and the laugh line and all the darkness in the eye and all of that, but it's all being hidden layer to layer to layer as we go so that none of it stands out, you know, like you're used to seeing like orc muscles and things like that. Lighten all that up a bit. Star Wars beer. Fist, yeah, we do whip. We do whip in probably about 15 minutes. You love your sisters, but only as allies with the Demon Hunters and Witch Hunters codexes? See, I had sisters way back when they weren't allies. They were just they were their own army, right? They had a lot more stuff, but very, very few models. It seemed like it was too much repetitiveness. That's kind of why I didn't like the army. Like every other model was identical, and no, you know, the medals, you didn't really have the ability to change them too much. They were cool, right? I really loved the helmets and stuff that they had back then. I mean, neat stuff, but I don't know. Culture has changed and that behavior isn't as accepted and is even actively pushed out now, Drago, where it wasn't before. Gotten better and improved over the last few years. Only from what you've seen, others may have different experiences. Yeah. Again, it's just, you know, the baseline for me is that it's always been there, but, you know, I probably haven't been real sensitive to it. Not to say that I wouldn't have been, but I just, you know, it's not what I pay attention to. And again, you know, the reality is that, you know, there are lots of times, probably more times, where you go into a game store and there's never a woman other than like somebody's parent that even walks into the building. Demon Hunters and Witch Hunters from 3rd could be allied together in the rules? Maybe so, yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. If I remember right, before there were Grey Knights, there were sisters though, right? So before any of that even existed, they had Sisters of Battle. Like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe before then. My GW history is horrible. I know that a lot of the allying them to the inquisitorial retinues and all of that stuff came when I was working at GW 3rd, 4th edition kind of timelines. Like you said. But I don't remember. I had Sisters of Battle long before that, and had already gotten rid of them by the time I worked at GW. Although when I was at GW, Forge World came out with the Sisters of Battle add-ons for rhinos and stuff like that that were really cool. The big melta cannons on the top of their Razorback. I think one of the biggest problems with them is how do you make them unique enough as an army, right? Like, what do you do to sisters that makes them worth having when all of their gear is watered down Space Marine gear? Right? You have to basically give them a whole new identity, I think, in order for them to work as an army that's worth building from a production value standpoint, right? Like cost to produce. And somebody's mentioning 3D printing. That stuff's not cheap at production level. And the amount of fall off you have, no matter how good your 3D printer is, there's such a tremendous amount of end-of-line failure on 3D printed stuff that it's almost not worth it just because of that. Right? You print 1,000 and 100 of them are bad. That's not the kind of numbers you can afford to do business with. And that's where 3D printing's at right now. Doesn't mean it didn't get better. But not right now. And GW does and has for years do SLAs of the prototypes for models before they go into production. We used to get SLAs in the US studio all the time. Brittle as hell. High detailed. When they started moving over to 3D sculpting was when I was there. When, you know, the bulk of the models were still metal. For prototyping, it only made sense. 3D printing is one of those luxury items still that, while it works, is just not ready for prime time as far as big production stuff goes. Repeatable production stuff, you know. Liking her face, that's looking pretty good. Call your drink Death Star, make it a punch bowl drink with one spot per straw. Palpatini. A Palpatini, like a, oh my god. That's pretty funny. But again, I feel like it needs to be like a beer, right? Imperial Stout was a good one, but I feel like we'll figure something out, right? Wyron's Reserve, Corellian whiskey. Well, that could be a thing if it's actually pulls from the lore dealer. I'd be all right with that. Or Vaderita. That's pretty funny too, though. Palpatini. Wookiee Red Ale. See, something like that, right? Wookiee Red Ale. Wookiee Pale Ale. Or Wookiee Amber, right? Kashyyyk IPA. Wookiee Amber. Something that would be fun to come up. We got to come up with like a logo for it too, right? Like in and amongst all this. We got a bunch of great ideas. One of them's gonna stick. We'll have to do like a poll and let everybody vote.
Let me have one of those porno magazines.
Porno mag.
Large box of condoms.
Condoms.
A bottle of Old Harper.
Harper.
A couple of those panty shields.
Shields.
And some illegal fireworks. And one of those disposable enemas.
Only one?
No, make it two.
All right, now we're partying. No idea what the panty shield is for. Again, just highlighting as much as I can in here. I'm going to start giving a little bit more variance to the skin. So I'll pull where the shoulder muscle would be. There's an indentation right here that would normally show up where that shadow is. See that little triangular shadow? So we'll come in now and highlight just below that, right? We'll start putting in more of the anatomical highlighting, I guess you might say, and bring in muscle detail where it might not exist on the model. Start playing around like that. So we've got a little bit of highlight down low and then up high. Leave that shadow coming through to give it the feel of a shoulder muscle right there. We're not going to have her ribs shadowed. I feel like doing that on female models can be a mistake. It makes them look like they need to eat a sandwich, right? Whereas on a male, when you got lots of muscle, maybe you would do like the ripples, you know, and show the edging in between, you know, the ribs. I feel like on a female, you got to be very careful when you do that. You can add in like a gaunt feel to the model very quickly. So sometimes less is more definitely works in those cases. It's from the lore. It's from the legend, so not new canon. Several of the books. Oh, the drink? The name for a heavy ale is Loom. L-U-M. Is that an acronym or just Lum? Lum? Loom? That thing? Nerds verify? I'm not ready to like take names down, so anything you guys say, I will forget today. Just understand that, right? That's just the way that story is going to work. All right, now we got to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more thin with the paint here and start working up a highlight on the butt. Biggest thing you want to do here is make sure you've got a very thin edge around the outer section of your paint. Don't let it build up at the end of your brush stroke. Notice how if I end my brush stroke, I always come back where it ends and just kind of feather it out. Even if you have to go kind of perpendicular to it, just make sure that you smooth it out so that you don't have a spot where as you do your brush stroke and it ends, you get a ridge of paint. And on flesh, it's the worst. Like, it's literally the worst in the world when that happens, because that ridge is only visible when you take freaking pictures of the model. Only when you need there to not be a ridge will it be visible, right? So you'll get like a ridge of paint there. When you go to like photo your model that you're all proud of at the end, it'll be like, ooh, she didn't have all that texture on her skin a minute ago. Wolf Lord, what is going on? Yeah, we're spending a lot of time on the flesh. A lot of people have problems with flesh, so and we're doing this without any pre-highlight. We're just working on it. Just kind of working. Glad you like it. Thank you. But even though the camera is the only thing that sees the ridge of paint, it was there. You just got to be very, very careful to blend and feather. Right? Sometimes it's not even about blending color. It's about feathering your dang brush strokes so you don't have any paint buildup where you don't want it. Right? I'm focusing all that highlight right up here. I'm not taking any of this lighter color down underneath the curve of her butt. It all needs to blend in right up here on the top side and then kind of brighten up where our bright spot needed to be. And by not intruding down here, now we see more of our mid-tone, more of our darkness, and our shadow really starts to pop there, right? So we've got a much nicer transition of skin tone going on now, right? Look over here where it's just two colors, right? It's the tan flesh and the fur brown, right? And now look at how just a little bit of layering of brightness on there changes it dramatically. I'm almost at my own flesh shade, yeah. Not really. I don't have that dark tone to my skin, so we'll never be there. Maybe if I find the right shadow on my arm. Of course, we get into all of the other colors pretty quick. She's more tan than I am. She's got her beach body. I have a beach whale body. All right, now on this guy, it'll be this guy. So on this cheek, right, it'll be more centered right in here. We get bright, so we'll just kind of start again, very, very light wispy strokes, multiple directions, so you feather that edge, don't let the paint build up. Keep knocking it off your brush if you need to. If you feel like you're building up paint, no matter what you do, just knock most of it off. Use the brush kind of, I don't want to say like a dry brush, right? But the lower the amount of paint is on the brush, the more that each brush stroke just feathers what's already there. looking pretty good. I'm really liking that skin tone. It's coming out pretty nicely. The bear should be a play on Colt 45. Oh, Billy D. Williams. That's right, right? That's right. It was Lando Calrissian. The hell? Colt 45. You're more excited for the hair? Yeah, I think like Jen made the call that the hair probably needs to be like a raven black, right? Because the model in the art has got the black bodysuit on like a normal stormtrooper. Since we've decided to go with the sculpt, which has the G-string and the flesh, I feel like the hair being black would be better than having it be brown. The brown plays too much into the flesh tones on the rest of the body, so I think the jet black, right? Matt, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. Darkness Knob, what is going on? Welcome. Good to have you back. I'm going to stop here in a minute and do some whip. Hoping to get a little bit further than this today, but looks like I get to use my normal excuse of being slow. We've talked a lot today, though. Good conversations, good stuff, not only on painting, but in the world of hobby in general. You guys have always got good combos that you bring up. Always happy to participate. You guys always keep it civil, which is freaking awesome. This community rules. A little extra smoothing there. I don't know if I want to bring... I may want to bring a little bit of this highlight down onto the thigh, like just down in the kind of the bottom triangle here. I don't have much paint left on the brush after that last couple strokes, which is good. So I'm not going to offload a bunch of paint here, but just a little bit. Just a little bit of brightness in there. Notice how it just gives it a little bit of glow here and here. You don't want to push it up too bright. If you push it up too bright and you get a contrast in where you put the glow on the skin, it makes it look like it's wet, right? You start getting a shine that makes it look like wet or oiled, and while there's times that you might want to go for that, generally on flesh you don't want to do that. So that's why you always want to do these very, very smooth gradients. You push up your flesh color. Sometimes, based on the flesh paints that you have, you'll be mixing more colors than not in order to get there. You want to make sure that you're, blending even these kind of small areas that you're doing here so that it doesn't look like a little highlight, like an edge highlight. Because if you just get a raw line on there, you don't blend it in with everything, then it just looks like an edge highlight. And like I said, it makes it look wet, right? Which in our case is definitely not what we're going for. That's looking really good. I'm liking the side over here. Face. And just kind of work the skin over the hip back and forth. Flexter, holy hell. What is going on? Streaming on a Tuesday? What the hell? You're up late. Welcome, everybody. And we want that brightness to come over the top of the hip here because of the way her hip is thrown out to the side. We just want to work from this inner thigh, kind of shaded inner thigh area. We'll bring it up into the outside of the hip, blending as we go so we don't build up that. Got to be careful with the brush line going around the armor. Feather that really nicely. Again, don't want to bring that highlight down too far into the inner thigh. Don't want to overtake too much of that shadow that we've already got on there. Ugh, what is going on? Fire Monkey, what is going on? Raven Black, yeah. I feel like it makes more sense. Auburn, no. Auburn won't work. Anything that pushes into the skin tone range of browns on this model is going to detract from it at this point. You know, like I said, the artwork missells the model. It's almost like when you look at the artwork, I feel like they went into Photoshop and blacked out these areas. I think if we actually saw this studio model, it's not painted this way, right? If you look at this, there's absolutely no lighting whatsoever. That's like ultra matte black in the black area. So I bet the studio model is painted with skin, and they made a marketing decision when they decided to do the artwork to not show the skin so that more people would buy the model. The problem with that, like we said on Friday, is that it is molded with, I mean, it's sculpted with a G-string. So unless you got some weird clothing going on, you know, the leotard or the bodysuit within a G-string on the outside, I feel like that's a little wonky. So we're painting with the skin because I feel like that's the intent of the model, and I don't feel like it overdoes it. But here, with all that black, right, as a normal stormtrooper would have the black bodysuit and then the brown hair, makes sense because you have limited flesh showing. So between skin tone and hair, we still get a good contrast. Here, with all of the skin tone, if we go brown, it's just, we can still get contrast with it, but I think it lessens the palette of the model. Whereas the Raven Black, doing some blues in on top of the blacks in the hair, will tell a much better story against the white and the skin tone. I think we'll pull everything together. The white's going to be very neutral until we get to the ground level where we'll bring some of the sand color up onto her, but not much, just her feet. I mean, we're not going to weather the model. We want her to be very, what did we say on Friday? Very Death Star Stormtrooper, and not whatever the hell this is, super weathered, beat up Stormtrooper, right? Tatooine Stormtrooper versus Death Star Stormtrooper. So we're going for very clean whites, other than, like I said, some of the sand that will have come up from the beach onto her feet. So we'll go with Raven Black. But auburn, brown, you know, dusty blonde, anything like that could work, depending on how you paint the rest of the model. Make her a ginger. Sucker for redheads. James Stay Stealth, what the hell is going on, my friend? Was it your birthday, James? I saw a picture that made me think it was your birthday. Blue hair, old lady. No, just blue over black for jet black. Are there gloves on this sculpt? The nice thing with the fingers is it allows you to kind of choose. The fingers have got kind of a texture to them on the knuckle that are reminiscent of what would happen with a glove. So I left them so that we can do black, because I feel like I really want the stark black glove on the hands and then the helmet white. So we went ahead and left the fingers that will do black because of that. But everywhere else, there is absolutely no texture of fabric in the folds where she throws her hip. There would be a wrinkle of fabric here. There'd be wrinkles of fabric going up from the underarm and the shoulder. There's nothing. Literally, I mean, there's nothing here at the side boob. There's no stretch in the underarms. There's nothing. This was sculpted to be exactly what we're painting. And nobody could argue that, except the sculptor could say, no, I was trying to do something else. But you don't sculpt this, right? The butt like this, all smooth with no fabric texture and a G-string. I don't think, unless this was the intent. I feel like they just changed it in marketing, which is good. Fine on them. I was a little taken aback when I saw it. I was like, oh, wow, I think that's a G-string. Because I was going to paint her black. I was going to paint all of this like bodysuit. But, you know, I expected kind of the ribbed texture that you see in the Star Wars movies, especially in the knees and the elbows. Like, you know. So, because obviously the Star Wars Stormtroopers have a butt plate that she doesn't have. But I was expecting kind of the ribbed undersuit. And when we got it, it's all skin. So we're painting to the sculpt, so to speak, rather than trying to fool it into thinking it's something it's not. And I don't mind, because it's going to set up the beach scene nice when we do the diorama base. So I'm okay with all that. What time is it? 5:48. All right, we got to do some whip. Exclamation point whip in chat. then we got to get a winner for our giveaway too. Hang tight, and we will do that right now. All right, so that's what we got done today. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but the skin tones are really coming together. Face is looking really good. Liking the shadows we got. Still have to do the front of the thighs and the stomach area. We're just now working around the hip from the buns. This is arguably where the hard work begins, because from now on, we literally are in very limited flat spaces. So the brighter you go, the more chance you have of just making it look wet, as opposed to, you know, bringing up the skin tones. Plus, now's the point where once we get the barbarian flesh done, that we'll go back and start looking at adding in some of the subdermal colors. Probably, we mentioned at the beginning on her, we're probably only going to use pinkish red hues. We're not going to go in with our standard blues and greens, mainly because of the sculpt, right? The pinup style of the sculpt. You know, if you think about beer ads or you know, whatever, we're kind of playing off of that kind of a trope there as like a beer ad girl. Reich, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome. You know, and in that, you're assuming that it's more Playboy style, right? Airbrushed, and so you're not going to get a lot of that discoloration. So if we go through and do the things that we do on like normal flesh or even non-normal flesh, you know, where we go in with a lot of different hues, not just the reds, but, you know, the greens and blues and things that we do on skin to get, you know, the subdermal look of veins and all of the stuff that goes on, then we start to lose the feminine nature of the model. You can do it, but I would suggest on a scale like this, and because of the sculpt and the dynamic nature of it, that you probably want to stick with just pinks and reds. So I'll probably go in with like some wasteland soil is what we pulled aside. It's one of my favorite colors from the Army Painter for doing exactly that. And we'll start to put in some of the flush areas. Obviously, like, well, she doesn't have a lot of cleavage showing, so we don't have to worry too much about the chest, and we won't go too red with the neck. So
Hey,
probably,
somebody
you know, on the
likes
face, cheeks coming out of the temple area and stuff, a little bit on the throat, probably a little bit in the crotch region as it comes out of her bikini line, not too much. There really isn't a whole lot here. Obviously, like at the cusp of her butt and things, back of the knees a little bit, but yeah, there's not a whole lot here. It's all tastefully covered, so normally you would have like the cleavage area would show a lot of flush. The skin is very thin on the chest at the sternum level, so that's going to cause a lot of those the blood vessels to show through, depending on pose and stress level and all that kind of stuff. But it'll be limited mainly to face, a little bit in the bikini line area and butt, underarms, things like that, back of knees, maybe back and neck, stuff like that. So we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. I may be able to find some time between tonight and tomorrow to finish up my highlighting on the flesh. We shall see. Fenris, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome, everybody. Take it easy, Flick. Thanks so much. Adios. No referencing of feet. Twitch will shut this all down. That's just a joke. Have you seen they've gone back on every single one of their rules? Boob streams are back in effect. Just go check out IRL and watch all of the all of the fine ladies dancing in skimpy clothes to, like, what's that called? Dance Dance Revolution? I think those rules don't exist anymore. Oh, gotcha, James. Doko, what's going on? Bullshit. I didn't say I was gonna. You don't want to see my titties. All right, let's go over and take a look at some whip. Immediately after whip, we will jump back over and do our giveaway. Then we got to turn it over to Kenny. Lady Amarellis, what's going on? Thank you so much for the follow. This was the picture, right? This was the pic that made me ask whether or not James Stay Stealth had a birthday, because this one says birthday pic on it somewhere, I think, right? That's James Stay Stealth. That's a nice hat you got there, buddy. Although this one's pretty cool too. Not gonna lie. Refresh and see what you guys are up to. If you haven't got your picks in yet, I probably will not be doing a refresh. Just saying. So let's start here. Ooh. Primaris goodness. Ultra Mega Helmet, Wolf Lord conversion. Anything else you should add? Oh, holy hell. I like the backpack, right? The wolf heads on the backpack from the Primaris side is nice. You're asking the wrong guy. The whole deal with Space Wolves is all the do-dangly bits, right? All the claws. It looks like you've got a nice kind of... Is this a pelt or is that just a bunch of stuff? Right? It looks like you've got something hanging off of here, which is nice, right? Maybe, is that a purity seal on the side here? They've always got like teeth and claws and fur pelts, and I feel like on a Wolf Lord you would want some sort of fur someplace, but man, that's a hassle to sculpt if you're not into it. You know, like something coming off of the back of his waist, you know, like a skirt, a fur skirt, something like that. And of course, yeah, we don't see the head, so he definitely needs more beard. Regardless of where he is right now, he needs more beard. Right? No, I feel like this looks great. I'm digging the lightning claw. I like it. I feel like fur pelt is a big deal, but man, we would have to do like an entire show on sculpting fur if you're not familiar with how to do that and have it turn out nice. It's not actually that hard. It's just tedious work. It's like doing a bunch of green stuff chains, right? NS Ogre, after the edge lining you suggested. Oh yeah, definitely. See, you've got your shading back in on the model, so now you've got like all of that detailing ready. I'm digging it. How do you feel on your end? I feel like the camera's kind of washed out some of your fade, right? You're probably going to, if you're this bright all the way down, you're probably going to want to glaze in a little bit of shadow around the knee, but the camera may be blowing that out. We'll wait, because we're not to the armor part yet. There's a lot to do on the armor from my end. I'm liking where you're at, though, right? And as I'm looking at yours, that kind of auburn brown on her hair is not bad with all the skin and the white. The white gives it enough contrast that maybe you could do that as well. I'm digging it. It's looking good. Another shot. Yep, definitely though, having that shading come back in, just that small pin wash to where you've got that detail on there, changes a lot of setting up the rest of the value on the armor for you so that now you can make better decisions. If you start highlighting and you've kind of overrun these shadows with your initial layering of grays and whites, then you tend to make different decisions as you brighten up the armor because you're not seeing where kind of the natural panel lines would gather dirt and grime and whatever, however you're painting her. It looks like you're going for as clean a look as I am. I'm digging it. I still think you're insane for putting the gun on. That's usually what people are saying to me. Current side project from Ogre. Some Circle Ouroboros for War Machine Hordes. Lots of greens, lots of browns, lots of animal skin. I like these guys. I don't remember what these guys are called. They're heavy troops. I always like Circle Ouroboros. I like the rock dudes, right? And the big wolf thingamajiggers. I forget all the names for War Machine Hordes. I played back in like 1.5. But it's amazing how much has not changed other than like moving to resin and plastic over the metal. The metal models are always god-awful, horrible. Maui Blood, curved glass tank with liquid from last week. I'm digging the glow on it. You're picking that up for sure. Blah, 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 blah. I feel like with the liquid in here, you don't have to go to this dark purple that I'm seeing. You want to go to just a shade of this magenta that you've got. So maybe add a little bit of this purple to this magenta to sell it, because here it looks a little weird because the top is a totally different color, right? So you want it to just be a little bit darker shade of the magenta you've got here across that line. Not, you know, not so dark as to go to dark purple, right? Because this kind of makes it look like it's another part of something. It's not the liquid anymore. The liquid still looks flat. If you make this just a shade darker of the magenta, I think you'll sell it 100%. I'm digging it though. Great work. Fist, trying your hand at some terrain for your new friendly local game store. I feel like you're trying your hand in the right direction. This is looking good. I dig it. I like all the rubble. Yeah, I feel like you get, you know, a little bit more dry brush on this, get some color worked up on it, maybe some detailing like that. I feel like with stones and dirt like this, a little bit of green, glaze or wash on it for kind of a mossy surface would look really good, unless this is supposed to be really dry terrain. With the colors you're going, I guess it could be like desert too. This looks really good. The house is burning down. Jen just came in and said she turned the heat on for the first time. So it's like, oh my God. Oh my God. She's all cold. I'm like sitting around in shorts and a t-shirt. She's bundled up in blankets. I like it. This is a great look. Is this just I'm assuming this isn't like base for something. This is actually like scatter terrain. I dig it. Nice job on the rubble. Wrath of Taz, converted drone to a fetid blight drone, getting there. I'm really digging it. I love the skin right here. First thing that grabs me is all the irritation, right? Again, you've done a great job with the reddish colors coming in and it looks infected, right? You didn't overdo it. It's really just kind of, I mean, it is. It's infected. Like, this is not what you want your skin to be like. I dig it. The yellow boils and everything look really good. And the blue is a good offset to it with that cool hue coming in. I like it a lot. Interested to see what you do with the carapace here to tie it all together. I like it, I like it. I like it even more that it's on a tech base. That's really cool, actually. Very cool. Yeah, now I'm seeing a lot of browns. Like, I'm seeing like maybe really, really dark brown and then a little bit of light brown. This may actually be, I'm looking at it as it, maybe it's uncolored, but now that I'm seeing the peaks of brown up on the spikes and stuff on the wings, I'm thinking this might be the color that you've chosen, right? Not bad. I feel like I would want to see a little bit more of a lighter color bringing some texture into these carapace parts, if this is where you're at. You know, like highlights around here. I don't know how far along you are, but this is looking really good, right? I feel like just grab some of the texture here. Not over, you know, not too much. But yeah, now I'm seeing the brown and the fades into the really, really deep black brown and then into kind of a chocolatey brown here. And I'd want to see a little bit of a lighter of this chocolate. Like, take your next light brown and lighten it up, or an ivory and lighten up this color brown that you've got on it just a little bit. So it's not super bright, just a little brighter to catch some of these striations and breaks in the carapace. To highlight that, it's gonna be nice. I like it. I likes it. Wrath of Taz again. Magnus finally done. Heck yeah. I really like this skirt. Tabard is looking really, really nice. Nicely done. I like it. And again, we've chosen to do him with just the small chest plate, but I like it with no chest armor at all. Works really well. I'm digging it. I like this. The catch the glow and the picture of that orange then fading into the blue works really, really well on this side. I know that's kind of a optical illusion with the picture, but it really sells the color choice that you've done. You could even come in with a little bit of purple. I don't know if I'm seeing it there, if I'm just seeing orange and blue blend, or if you've got a little bit of purplish magenta blending those together. That would be the thing that would sell this the whole way. Is like just a really, really light glaze of purple to obscure the orange going into the blue would add a really cool hue to it, but I like it the way it is. Nice work. Silvernail, more non-metallic metal G, NMMG. I don't know what the G is. Non-metal gold is what you're trying to say. Gotcha. Gotcha. So I feel like again here what you're missing, right, is that initial setup, right? Just like we talked about last week. You are pinning your darkness in between the panels as if it were just shading, right? Shadow. That's going to exist, but you still don't have like a darkness, a reflection to tie to drive home a metallic sheen, like a shine or, you know, a hard surface look to it. This still looks like yellow shell or something like that. You know, we're missing, and I know you're in the middle of it, this isn't done, but I think what you're going to find is just like before when you were doing the piece that was on the ground, you don't have your colors set up for the right kind of shine right out of the gates. And that tends to cause problems for people when you set it up like this and you've got your dark spots or your normal shadows of where these panels overlap one another. Then you're going to highlight it as if it's just a normal thing, and by the end of it, it doesn't look like metal. It just looks like a really nicely painted like yellow carapace, like we saw on that blight drone, right? So again, you're going to want to come through here and pick a direction for a reflective sheen on these, whether it's I would bisect this, right, kind of perpendicular to the shell lines, and I would give it like a really dark line that went, you know, portion to portion. So it would be dark across here, then it would skip down a little bit because of the level change and come back up, and then skip down and come back up and give you a dark reflective line almost horizontally, although her knee is kicked up a little bit, so it'd be at a little bit of a diagonal down here. Then you can build your brightness on the top side towards your lighting source of, and then fade out of it. But yeah, well, and like I said, the hardest thing about non-metallic metal is getting into training your brain to think about why you're doing what you're doing on each piece, as opposed to just painting like you normally do. Because this is great. If you're just painting like a yellow shell, it looks great. You've done great choice, all of your color choice and all of that. But metal takes a different start. You don't just go into it with a base coat, a highlight, a next highlight, a next highlight, a next highlight. The first thing is block in the shiny parts, right? So we go back to the Masquerade guy that we did was it last week where we were working on him, right? You go back to the Masquerade guy and you start looking at, okay, before I even started painting on this guy, I said, where do I want my reflective lines to go? And then I started painting in my bright lines, my darkness, so my reflective shadow and actual reflection. Maybe there's a person over here that's reflecting on it. You have to start thinking about why metal reacts the way that it does so that you get that, right? You get that bright line on the collar that then goes immediately into darkness because it's away from the light source. So you got to position your light, figure out where it's coming from, tell yourself where you want your brightest pieces to be. This is saturating quite a bit, but there you go. That's more of what it actually looks like on the table, right? So you've got that saturation on the top of the left breast. So you got to place your brightness, place your darkness, and then start blending in and adding hue off of that. So build it all up in blacks and whites almost, even for golds, right? Remember, we built all this up in blacks and whites for even the gold shine, and then started adding hue over that, just so that your brain gets comfortable with what it's doing, as opposed to starting off with, you know, a brown and then a mid-tone yellow and a yellow and a yellow. I mean, I've shown you how to do that before, but I think that the reason why a lot of people that doesn't grab hold for them as quickly is because it doesn't get your brain wrapped around the saturation and the reflection lines early enough. So just set that up. You don't have to redo this. You can come back in and just treat this as, you know, your starting point again, and then add in a reflective line here, and then build up brightness on top of that and see where you get. But good fearlessness for jumping in and just doing it, especially at this scale, right? Because these are large flat panels. So doing it on here, again, you're just going to have to pick a direction, and because it's segregated, right, in these segments of armor, each one of those, you don't want to paint a line that just continues and is flat. You want each one of these to have a part of that line on it, but then it drops down and comes back up, drops down and comes back up, so that line is segmented with the armor panels as well, right? Because that's the way light and reflection play. It would not just post itself as a straight line across here. A cool model, though. Ray, you do not think you can clip that many hairs out? Yeah, I said send it to my email, man. Not here. Azrael, you're working on Inceptors today.
And pollute my britches with delight.
Is that what these guys are called? The Assault Dudes? Colot with a resub. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. I dig these models. I don't like the space helmet thing, but I think it allows people to do some really fun things with them, where they've done like the covers on them and stuff. I can dig it. I question some of the Primaris choices that they've got, but I really dig some of the other ones. Very cool, going black. Genuine with the host. We're almost done here. Thank you. Crazy 8, chalky texture you mentioned in chat on the Necrotite green. Let me zoom in here. I wasn't part of that conversation in chat, but let me see if I can see what you're talking about. So you're feeling like it's just giving you kind of a rough edge? Is that what you mean by chalky texture? Generally that comes when you're not painting with it thin enough, but I'm not seeing a ton of buildup of paint. I mean, your blended edge is a little rough, but not bad, right? If you're feeling like the paint itself is just chunky, you can add a little bit of medium to it and stir the hell out of it, right? But this doesn't, I mean, obviously the picture's obviously losing some of the content from what you're seeing as being your problem. Because this doesn't look as bad. Like, I'm not seeing a real harsh line here that I assume I get from, like, chalky. Yeah, you had another pic, but it wouldn't upload. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, if you feel like thinning it doesn't help, then you may just have an old bottle of paint. Or, you know, you can add a little bit of medium. Acrylic medium will work, but you got to be careful because it will also thin the paint at a point. So, you know, I would try first just, you know, taking a drop out and trying to smooth it either with water or medium and see if you can get rid of that by thinning it down and layering it back up. I don't work with the P3 paints very much. I think that's a P3, the Necrotite green. Is that right? I don't have any, so I don't know exactly what to tell you. I don't have the experience with, you know, if this is a normal kind of occurrence or not. Did I just hit the wrong button? There we go. Painted rocks. Oh, look at you, man. Already got some dry brushing on them. Yeah, that's starting to come together. With rocks like this, again, just bring in, you know, you're going to want to bring in some of the earth tones into the bottom and even, you know, up a little high on some of it. And then you know, see me do it before if you've watched, like some yellows and some greens, but really, really thin. You don't want them to be very visible. Just gives it a nice color tone. But since this is just, you know, scatter terrain, if it's for a shop, then just get it to a good playable standard, man. People are going to get their grubby hands all over it. I'm already liking where you're going. Very interesting piece. It's also very playable, right? I can get a lot of models in here and to utilize this as cover or difficult terrain or whatever it is. So good layout. Uh-oh, what am I seeing here? Oh, look at this. Obi-Wan Kenobi? What? Skywalker vodka. These are good. These are just a robbed Photoshop thing, right? Qui John Jin. What is this? What does this say? Mandalorian? Is that Mandalorian across there? Obi-Wan Kenobi is freaking hilarious, by the way. Those are great ideas for the beach towel. That's why he's posting them up there for our beach towel. Ray Silver fur brown layer down. I'm digging it. You had a little. It looks like you had a little bit more pre-highlight that worked out on your skin, right? Because I'm already seeing a little bit of highlight. So when you did your pre-highlight of your armor, you probably had a little bit more workup happen on your skin because I'm seeing it already doing some work. So good on you there. Yep, looks good. Looks good. The white's looking good too. A butt shot. Serious butt shot. Yep. It's smooth. The key for the first layer is just its smoothness. And for us, because we didn't have a pre-highlight on the skin, was a little more important. Well, it's never less important. But for you, if you're going to pick up a little highlight already because of pre-highlight on the skin, then you're going to have, you know, a little bit more leeway on making your first layer consistent, right? Because it's gonna be brighter and darker already for you. So, Sev 7, more trees. I love these damn trees. Great terrain that you can never get. Distribution is always out of these damn things because they're so great. Because they work for every game. Good on GW for doing these. I love them. Good stuff. I like the rocks. Never been able to get my hand on any of those. Pirate Monkey Painting just finished the Primaris Chaplain and wanted to share. I saw you working on this on the stream the other night, I think. I dig it. I likes it a lot. I would have chosen a different color for the eye glow because you've already got the red on the bolter and the red on the handle and the red on the purity seal. Sometimes it's much better to go, if you're trying to get an effect like this, choose a color you don't have anywhere else on the model or that also supplements that color. So something like a green would have worked really well here because you don't have, other than in the rough turf on the ground, right? A nice, like, dull green glow would have really sold the glow. Whereas here, because you've got this other red reference points, this just looks like it's painted red. And you lose the kind of eye glow feature that I think you were going for. Another color would have helped that. Green probably, because your blacks, if you do a blue, it kind of falls into being too cool with the blacks. Green, I think, would sell it, right? Maybe even a purple. If you wanted to keep it in the reds, you could go with kind of a purple, but I don't know that purple really tells a story. I think green is your best bet. Awesome, though. Great work on everything. The leather looks fantastic. Like it. I really like what you did with the base, too. Very cool. I'm a big fan of Chaplin's. Is that it? Is that it? I feel like that's it. All right, let's do some giveaway. We got to do a giveaway, and then we are back at it. Pass it over to Kenny. Be dunzos. Alrighty, watch the little window down there at the bottom. We got 63 entries. There's still time! Exclamation point booty. I have not stopped it yet. Ugh, but this is your last call. There you go. A few more extra people jumping in. Exclamation point booty in chat. Someone is going to walk home with a gift certificate over to slowfusegaming.com, courtesy of all the generous people that did the donations today, hitting our critical mass. Every $50 on the channel, we do another giveaway. Up to $100 in gift certificates. Who won the $100 one last week before last? I feel like somebody just got a $100 one not too long back. Lots of you guys sleeping. Are you kidding me? Exclamation point booty. All right, I'm going to reach over here. We're going to grab the drum roll, and then we are picking. We are picking. So here we go. Eins, zwei, some other number that I don't remember. Dry. That's what it is. Dry. Drum roll. Grins! Holy hell, Grins. Congratulations to Grins. One of our silver VIPs. Woot! He says woo 7. Congratulations. Here come all the rigs. Yep, here comes all the rigged. Everything's rigged, especially if Grins wins. Freaking Canadian. Canadians have all the codes to cheat, I feel like. The government gives it to them, like free medical and free cheat codes. All right, Grins, you know how this goes. You've been here. You've done this. You know the drill. Everybody prepare yourselves. I need to let everybody know that it might be their first time here. What exactly happens when we have a winner on this channel? There's something that's incoming. You see the little emotes coming up for the awkward man stare. It is not safe for everyone. I'm just here to tell you. Right? Old people with pacemakers. Probably young people with pacemakers. Probably just old and young people. Kids. Pets. Family members of all ages. Sexes. Creeds, colors, religions. You probably just want to distance yourself from everybody in the room and just go hide in a closet with your computer or your phone for this one, guys. This is something we like to call the awkward man stare, and it just helps spread a little love. And this one, Grins, this one's for you. There you go. He even gets a wink. First one of the night. Thank you, my friend. What do you want? What do you want, the wall? Jangle Belly's like, what is going on? A congressional inquiry panel related to my stares. Hey, you know, they got to catch me first, is all I'm saying. Your roommate is hating picking up the mail? Why? Get off your butt and go pick up your own mail. Jeez. Why are you forcing your roommate to do it? I don't understand. I warned everybody. I did. I warned you. So I accept. We here at Selfies Gaming accept absolutely no responsibility for anything that happens in your neck of the woods due to the awkward man stare. So sorry, it's just the way it goes. That's our liability waiver, right? You want the wall or you want the wheel, Grins? It's your pick. What are we doing? Wall or wheel? It's up to you, my friend. He said wheel. I didn't see it. I don't pay attention to you people. Wheel. Here we go. Wheel incoming. All right. If you are not Grins, I feel like you probably want to hope he doesn't steal the $100. Me included. Don't steal my $100, Grins. But if you're Grins, he's going to cross his fingers and he's going to hope that the $100 comes around in his favor. So here we go. Cross him if you got him, Grins. $25, $40, $50, and one $100 gift certificate on there. There goes the hundo. Here comes the hundo. There goes the hundo. Oh God, there's enough power on this wheel that the hundo could come back. I don't feel like it though. 25, maybe 40? Maybe 40. That hundo really wants it. $40, my friend. Congratulations. I'm like sitting here going, oh please, not again. Stealing my money. Grins. You get your name on the palette of shame here. This is my only writing space. Grins, congratulations. 40 buccarinos. You know how this works. He's familiar with the store. He's old hat around here. Congrats. And that's it for us tonight, gang. We got a lot of work done on the flesh. So tomorrow we'll continue working on highlights. We'll probably go up another tent of flesh, I would think. I kind of like where we're at right now. So I don't know. Maybe. I think what I'll do is I'll finish up with, this flesh tone with the barbarian skin. I'll go ahead and add it into the other places where I need it. Take a stand back on the model before the show tomorrow, and then we might start off adding one more layer, or we might, I think we need to, because the big question here is that we get to a position where if we start pushing our whites higher and we don't have our skin tone set at the right value, then we might overdo our whites. So because we're playing with values that are gonna fight with one another if we're not careful, we'll go ahead and push the skin tone up as far as we feel like we need to through the stream tomorrow. And then hopefully by kind of mid to late stream, we'll start working on the whites. We're gonna be glazing more of the light grays. And remember, we haven't used any true white on this model yet. So we'll start glazing in some true whites to brighten up and get the shine on it. We want kind of that metallic hard. Well, actually, I feel like Stormtroopers are more hard plastic shine, right? They just have always come across as being hard plastic. So we'll do that and start getting that clean kind of white going, and maybe start working on her hair. We're going to finish her up by, I hope, end of Friday's stream. So we shall see. But again, awesome stuff. Thanks for joining in. I'm going to pass you off to Kenny right now. I am going to do the raid. You guys can type into the chatterinos. All that stuff. I think we know how to do this. Let's start this thing. Is this how this works? I think we go this. They don't have like a button that does it, so I'm always like, what the hell? I think it's like that, right? So there you go. Click to join in on that raid. Just click join. And then as soon as we are done here, it will bounce you over to Kenny's stream. We will host him as well with the auto host. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, you've been lurking in the background, please hit that follow button. And thank you again to all the new subs, the old subs, resubs, and all of that, and just for hanging out with us in general on a Tuesday. Hope your weekend was great. Hope the rest of your week is wonderful. We'll be back here again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific for more work. And it's also Whip Wednesday, where we take a lot more look into what you guys have got going on. So thanks for hanging with us, and we will see you then. Adios, folks.